Hey y'all, how's it going? It's oh goodness. Okay, we good. All right. Hey y'all, it's Becky here from the Beckosphere, where we talk about climate news and solutions. And hi. I'm just going to advertise real quick on Instagram, and then we'll get going. And House Republican plans for climate action. Okay, and then I go on Discord. Hey, what's up, Globus? How's it going, Globus? How you doing? How you doing? Um, yeah. I hope you're having a good day so far. We're live on Twitch. There we go. I feel like I need to raise up my thing just like one more book. Here, let me. Yes, I'm using books. Okay, there we go. Let's see, do I want it to be more that way or that way? If I go this way, then I'm going to. But then I'm moving further away from my mic. I mean, hypothetically, it could be smart to just move my mic to the other side, but I'm a blonde. I don't know what to tell you. But hey, how's it going? Today, as you probably saw, we're going to talk about the House Republicans' climate plan for, yeah, basically the House Republicans' climate plan. They released the first part 6 months ago, and I actually did a video on that first part. So I was thinking we can go ahead and just watch a little bit of that video, not the whole thing, because the whole thing is like 35 minutes, and also, I mean, I will speed it up. I think I'm going to put it at 1.25. I sound better at 1.25. I'll even admit that. But just to give us a general idea of how I felt the first one was, because they released like 6 parts, I believe, of the plan. So there's a lot to go over. But I'm hoping to be able to kind of use this video and turn it into an actual like video on the Beckosphere channel. Because originally I was going to, and if you're on my Twitch or my Discord, then you already know the spiel. But basically, I was originally going to do a video on the aftermath of the US midterms and how it's going to impact climate policy. But frankly, it got too politicized sounding, which I know is stupid because like I don't really know what I expected talking about an election for it not to sound too political, but like it sounds too political. So I instead think that this might be a more relaxed way to talk about different policies and what it could mean for climate action moving forward. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. So I guess let me go ahead and just start by playing the video that I did 6 months ago on the first part of the series. So actually, if I go over to here, so this is what we're looking at for the task force. I think I want it to be a little. Let's move it over ever slightly and then there. Okay. Um yeah, so this is what it looks like. And I think that I went over the first like main page and then also just the first part. So if we go over to here, and scroll down, these are the 6 parts right here that they have released. So we got unlock American resources, American innovation, let America build, beat China and Russia, conservation with a purpose, and build resilient communities. So yeah. So we have that to look at, and let's just go into the first one. Here's me from 6 months ago. Crazy. Yeah, June 6th. Almost exactly 6 months ago. All right, let me plug myself in to listen. Hey, what's up, Carlos? How's it going? In a change of events, we're watching me on my Twitch. If I can find the little aux cord. There we go. Okay. Hopefully the audio will be fine on both ends. And yeah. Okay. I know, Inception style for real. I'll be reacting to be reacting. But we're not going to watch the whole one. Well, maybe we'll end up watching the whole one, but I don't want to because that's like 35 minutes. But I think I made it faster. It's back to normal. Let me speed it up. Okay. And y'all could be like, hey, we've already seen this. We don't need to watch it. But let me know. This agenda will deliver lower energy costs for consumers, create American jobs, and provide economic and energy security for American families by utilizing American resources and capitalizing on our competitive and technological advantage. That all sounds good. I'm just kind of worried how you're going to get there. Hey y'all, it's Becky here from the Beckosphere, where we talk about climate news and solutions. And today I wanted to talk about the new Republican House of Representatives task force for the energy, climate, and conservation. And I wanted to look at their first pillar in their new plan that they're kind of releasing in chunks, like their climate plan. Basically, this would be their climate plan if they regained majority in the House of Representatives. Which they did. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So, I think it's also important to note, is everything working audio-wise? Okay. I think it's also important to note that this video and this part of the plan were released before the act passed. Okay, so just for a little bit of context here, yeah, it happened before the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. And that's going to change some of my perspectives from this video, and then also some of what they're saying, because it's not exactly how it was before. So anyways, just something to keep in mind. I don't exactly know when they released each of those parts, so that might be an interesting thing that maybe we'll kind of be able to parse out from the other sections of their plan, is whether or not they were released before or after the Inflation Reduction Act, or whether or not they don't even care if the Inflation Reduction Act is passed because they don't even think it's a big enough deal to have changed any of their plans. But I think it probably would be a pretty big deal, but I don't know. Let's go ahead and take a look at their plan, or I guess pillar 1 of their plan, which was just released yesterday. We're going to see from what perspective they're taking it, what solutions they're thinking about. I'm going to do it from an objective point of view based on my own research and understanding on these topics. A little about me: I graduated with a background in environmental science and journalism, so I talk about climate change on this channel. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. I also do have a weekday podcast where which is not exactly weekday anymore. It's okay. It's okay. And let's just look at what the first pillar of their plan is. Actually, let's start by looking at their plan overall. The nationwide average price for a gas of gallon has reached $4.72, the highest price ever recorded. I just noticed I said gas of gallon. Sorry. My dyslexia strikes again. President Biden and House Democrats simply don't have a strategy to address our current energy crisis, and Americans are paying for it. First of all, they do have a strategy, you just don't like that strategy. And second of all, it's not necessarily their fault that the gas is that high. There's actually a really great video that Climate Town just recently did on what controls the gas price. But bottom line, big misconception that the president somehow has the ability to control international gas prices, because
He doesn't. He really doesn't. There's no special button on that. And if anything, it's more like the oil companies have a little more control over that. But it's, again, very complicated. Highly recommend that video. If they're going to start by addressing it from this fallacy, that's not a great start. Also, what does the rise of the gas price necessarily have to do with reducing emissions? I guess it could encourage people to reduce emissions, but it on its own is just kind of a thing. The Democrats have placed fault in everything but themselves on this issue. They blamed energy producers while refusing to issue leases for energy production and discouraging investment. So first of all, if we're blaming the oil companies, the ones that have made a major profit during this war, which is also a video that Climate did. I feel like this is just an advertisement for Climate even though they have way more subscribers than I do. Subscribe. But they're clearly referring to gas leases here. So they're referring to wanting there to be more gas drilling, which is already a little bit of a red flag here if we're talking about a climate plan, because we have to move away from fossil fuels, including gas. There's an argument going around right now that gas is a good transition fuel. That's a good transition from coal to clean energy, but in reality now would cost way less for us to just go straight from coal and oil to clean energy and completely skip the gas part altogether. It would cost less having to do with building all new infrastructure just to rebuild new infrastructure, and it also costs less because the gas prices right now are just so high. It doesn't make sense for us to move to more gas products when it's actually cheaper to just go straight to electrification. So yes, there is a little bit of blame to go on the oil companies for the gas prices because they have not tried to lower gas prices, even though they have created a record surplus from this whole dilemma. And two, they're not discouraging investment altogether. They're mostly discouraging investment on new oil and gas, but even then they're really not. Like, a lot of climate people wished that they actually would stop leasing oil and gas projects, but they're still doing that. So it's not even that I guess they're vocally discouraging investment, but they're not actually acting like that. And they're also increasing investment in clean energy projects. The administration just announced that they would be cutting the price of renting places and other costs by half for clean energy in public lands. So that, I would say, is definitely encouraging it. They also just announced that they're increasing the amount of permitting offices so that there can be faster permitting processes for clean energy. So that's another way that they are encouraging investment. So we're being very clear here on which energy we're really referring to. They've blamed Vladimir Putin while increasing the purchases of Russian oil by 160%. I actually don't know that statistic. Okay, we don't have
this
there's no source
video was clearly
for
made.
This, so I don't know.
This video was clearly made before Carlos gave me the microphone. I think so. Anyways, like the audio's. Anyways,
So where they're getting that statistic.
I'm just shitting on my own video. This is turning into Becky shitting on her own video, and I'm going to do my best not to do that, but you know, room for improvement. I guess it's good to know that. So, anyways.
From Russia's part of OPEC, which is the big oil cartel. So yeah, they play a role. Also, Russia is one of the top oil suppliers in the world. So yeah, I'd say them going to war and us boycotting their products definitely has increased prices. I mean, that makes sense.
Do you think that 6 months ago you thought that this war would still be going on right now? Let me know. I think I probably did. I don't think I would be terribly surprised where we are right now. Maybe I'm a little surprised by how well Ukraine has been able to fight back, actually. Like, I believe that they're tough folks, but like still, that's impressive how much they've been able to fight back. So that's probably what I would be the most surprised about looking 6 months into the future kind of thing. But let me know what you think.
And they've claimed renewables are the only solution while stopping production of critical minerals here at home. Stopping? I wonder if they're referring to people who are concerned about the environmental impacts of mining, and that's why they're slowing down the process. Because I don't know of anything that refers to them stopping production of critical minerals. If I find it in the editing phase, I'll put it in. For anything I say, if I find something in the editing phase, I will put it in. And leaving our home even more dependent on China. Okay, so for that, they're referring to the fact that a lot of solar projects come from China, which is the whole tariff issue, which if you don't know what I'm referring to there, I did a video on the solar tariff problem recently, so you can check that out. So yeah, we are pretty dependent on China when it comes to solar. I will admit that, but to be honest, most countries are. Basically, since China subsidized the shit out of solar, we've been reliant on China. That's not necessarily true for wind, though. Wind, we still have an opportunity to have a higher domestic manufacturing process, and for a lot of other things, we could
see type of situation. Interesting. Yeah, it would turn into a lot more of like a slow burner. You probably would have expected, honestly. Hmm.
Have a higher manufacturing process. And we can even spur more manufacturing here, though it's been very difficult to make that happen, but it's still possible. So that's true, though, that we're leaving our country even more dependent on China, kind of, but not really, because when you think about it, there's a difference between China providing the products like solar panels and stuff compared to Russia supplying oil, because Russia supplying oil is a continuous relationship. You know, you need to keep getting that supply. But with the Chinese controlling a lot of the solar operations, yes, that is them being able to control the market to some extent when it has to do with getting things installed. But once things are installed, like, we're still producing our own energy via sunlight. So that's where the relationship ends. So it's not quite the same thing. And I think it's very ironic that they're talking about leaving our country even more dependent on China when we're increasing the amount of fossil fuel infrastructure. We are engaging in a longer term relationship with Russia, because let's be honest, when the war's over, we're going to eventually go back to Russian oil and gas, most likely. There could be a power change, but also we're making ourselves more reliant on authoritarian countries like Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. You know, like, we're already having to make deals with the devil to some extent. So I think it's a little ironic that they're only referring to us being dependent in this scenario, not in our current scenario. Because if we weren't dependent in our current scenario, how do you think we got into the problem in the first place? And while Democrats might set lofty goals on emissions, U.S. emissions have increased over 6% during President Biden's
capabilities were overrated and outside support to Ukraine was higher than I anticipated. Yeah, I think same here. I agree. I think that my statement from 6 months ago of Russia being like a supplier of oil and gas as soon as the war is over is true still. I think it's probably still true. If we remain reliant on fossil fuels to the extent that we are now, I would not be surprised that we would reduce our morals to go back to Russia fossil fuels. Though I think also the transition away from fossil fuels due to the war has been something. It's definitely like, I wouldn't say a green transition, just like we didn't necessarily have like a green recovery from the pandemic or anything like that. But I'd say the power has shifted a little bit, but still not enough for me to think that Russia is not going to be relied on for fossil fuels again in the future, despite what they're doing right now. Because if we learn anything from the U.S. now going back to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, when it comes to fossil fuels, we will set aside our high ground for them. So yeah, that's what I still think.
His first year in office. President Biden's failed energy agenda has taken us in the wrong direction. I feel like this whole thing is making me like defend Biden, which like, to be clear, I'm not a Biden simp or anything, okay? Like, I have my own opinions on both parties, but this is frustrating that so far I'm trying to get information on their plan for climate change stuff, and they're just pissing on the current president, and it's very, of course. So, I mean, increasing emissions by 6%, honestly, that wouldn't surprise me if that's true. I don't have the exact number in hand, but I know that we're not really doing that great of a job of decreasing our emissions. But honestly, we have the infrastructure in place that, of course, we're emitting.
Green energy leads to increased independence. Exactly. That it very much does. And that, for some reason, still completely is missed in the mentality of I don't understand why that is. And yes, again, we, talked about the whole China dependency thing, and that's a legit concern to be as dependent on China for this important technology as solar panels as we are, but it's not the same thing as being reliant on Russia for fossil fuels. And so it's dumb that those two things keep being conflated, and it's a very common argument I hear all the time. So keep that argument in mind for y'all if you ever come across people that might say stuff like that.
Still, the U.S. Energy Information Administration projects world energy consumption will grow by nearly 50% between 2020 and 2050. Who supplies that energy demand matters. Okay, so yes, our energy consumption is definitely going to go up, especially, so there's multiple factors relating to that, right? There's the increased population, though that's not as much of a case in the US right now because our population has practically stabilized. There's also just increased electrification as we're moving towards clean energy. We're going to rely more on electricity rather than using fossil fuels in other spaces. There's also, due to more extreme weather events, we're probably going to be using air conditioning more, especially if we continue to not insulate our homes and just make smarter homes to begin with. We would have to definitely rely more on energy. And Americans just use way too much energy. There's a whole study that talks about like the amount of energy a person uses in a year that would be enough to make them happy, and we're like 3 times that. So yes, it's true. Who supplies energy demand matters. I couldn't agree more, which is why I think we should supply our own energy for the most part. And a great way to do that is to use our own natural resources in the form of solar and wind and water to some extent. And yeah, Americans don't need leaders pointing fingers.
I wish I zoomed up on myself on this part.
So you point fingers for 3 paragraphs and then you say we don't need to point fingers. Come on. We need leadership that can provide a coherent energy strategy that lowers costs and provide cleaner, more secure energy to Americans and our allies around the world. I agree to Americans. I kind of don't think we need to be supplying all that much to other countries. I kind of think it would be better if most countries were energy independent. I think that there's some value in having a smaller partnerships. I guess I've outed myself as not much of a one world, one sun idea, but I'm going to do a video. I decided I'm going to make it a series. So I'm going to do a series on modernizing the grid and the concept of macro grids versus microgrids.
6 months later, it has not happened. Sorry.
As part of Leader McCarthy's commitment to America, House Republicans have created 7.
It's a great idea. I interviewed Dave from Just Have a Think for it, and then I never did anything for it because I realized how overwhelming, how many out with it. So I'm a nuclear stan, so I would like to see more of that. I'm not a nuclear stan, but I'm also not against nuclear either. I'm very 50-50 on it. Like, I feel like my opinion on nuclear changes all the time as I get more information on both directions. And so I believe that nuclear does have a place in the future, but I don't necessarily think that it should be the end-all be-all of the future like some people act like it should. Because, again, if we're trying to improve our energy grid and we're trying to improve our energy systems, moving from being reliant on like 3 different types of energy production in the way of the different fossil fuels to one type of energy production in the way of nuclear sounds like the wrong direction to me to ensure energy security. But yeah. But I don't necessarily think that it doesn't have a place in the future either. I honestly feel like I need to do more research when it comes to the newer nuclear reactors and the micronuclear reactors, because the most I saw is the study that shows that the nuclear waste from those smaller reactors is harder to dispose of than the new ones. And then I remember talking to some of y'all on Twitch about that, and apparently that's based on current technology, so that might not be incredibly accurate. So I don't know. It's I need to do more research on that topic, frankly.
Republican task forces to identify and develop policy solutions to the issues facing the American people. I wonder what the other ones are. The Energy, Climate, and Conservation, or ECC, task force is creating an agenda that is built on the proven success of conservative energy policies, like those that made the United States the world leader in reducing carbon emissions while increasing productivity in the first place. We're not a world leader in reducing carbon emissions at all. In fact, there was a study that I just covered, I guess by the time you're watching this, probably yesterday, that put us at, I think, what are we at? 43rd? Something like that? We're not leading by any stretch. And that's because we're not really being progressive with our energy policy here. This agenda will deliver lower energy costs for consumers, create American jobs, and provide economic and energy security for American families by utilizing American resources and capitalizing on our competitive and technological advantage. That all sounds good. I'm just kind of worried how you're going to get there. We can do this while also lowering global emissions and reducing reliance on foreign advisories for our energy and resource needs. Yeah, also, yes, we can do that. I'm curious how you think we're going to get there, though. Over the coming months, the ECC task force will roll out policies in 6 key issue areas, including number 1, unlock American resources. Number 2, American innovation. Number 3, let America build. Number 4, beat China and Russia. Number 5, conservation with a purpose. And number 6, build resilient communities. President Biden and House Democrats want you to believe that high energy prices are an unavoidable price for a cleaner planet. No, they don't. They've never said that. They've literally never said that. Are there going to be some upfront costs because we're transitioning a whole...
Captain Jackass used to be great for nuclear content, but he hasn't been on Twitch for a minute. I keep hearing that about like other climate. Like I keep hearing about different ones, and I go and I check on them, and they're not there anymore. I'm like, oh, sad. Well, let me know if it comes back on, because I would be interested in learning more. I could probably check out some of his old videos if they're still on.
Whole grid? Yeah, but also, when done right, we should be able to do it in a way that in particular does not impact poor communities, because that's just not fair, right? That's what government money is for, to even it out a little bit. And 2, renewable energy is already cheaper, especially right now. It's already cheaper. So it's crazy that they're making this argument right now when renewable energy is, like, compared to gas, the cheapest it's been. The United States led the world in lowering emissions while lowering energy costs for American households. Again, I don't know where they're getting that. We accomplished this by utilizing American resources made cheaper by innovation. I guess maybe we reduced emissions a little faster in the beginning because we moved to gas more when other countries were still in coal. So I guess if that's what they're arguing, then that's true.
Okay, so I was doing research to try to figure out which authoritarian regimes the U.S. gets its oil from, and I found this website from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is really interesting. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the largest lobbying group in the U.S., so it includes anything from like Pfizer to Chevron to like all kinds of huge.
This sounds like I did get the microphone by that point, but I guess I didn't use it for the main crux of the video. I'm so weird.
Corporations, and they wrote a piece called "Greater U.S. Energy Production is Needed to Reduce Reliance on Authoritarian Regimes," which I thought was interesting. So they're basically advocating for more LNG or liquefied natural gas infrastructure. But what I found the most interesting is this graph right here: methane emissions intensity of oil and gas production. Here we are in the U.S. We are more emissions heavy. And by the way, methane is a more potent greenhouse gas than CO2, though it doesn't last in the atmosphere for as long. I believe that it's 84 times stronger for the first 20 years that's released than CO2. And we have a higher intensity in our operations than Brazil, China, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Canada, Qatar, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, and Australia. We have more emissions intensity. This is why we should not partner with Venezuela, by the way. But we're in an article in which we're advocating for more domestic production. We have a graph that's disproving why we should increase our domestic production. I don't understand. Therefore, a comprehensive approach to enhance energy security through increased domestic production will not undermine climate goals. How? I mean, I guess it reduces reliance on Russian imports, which are more intense, and Mexican imports. Those are two.
Thank you so much, Maple Leaf Dragon. I love having you here. Hi. How's it going? We're doing Becca Sphere and for watching my old video to start off this topic having to do with the Republicans' climate plan, because they're going to have control over the House. Yay. Thank you so much, though, for resubscribing. I greatly appreciate you, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day.
Big ones for us, but still, Saudi Arabia, come on.
We accomplished this by utilizing American resources made cheaper by innovation. Instead of pushing Americans with higher prices, reduce consumer choice. That's also ironic because we're asking for a more diverse grid with more options. Instead of punishing Americans with higher prices, they're not higher, reducing consumer choice, also didn't say that, and making it harder for Americans to innovate. Also not true. We could be using a lot more innovation that's happening every day from people. There was a little thing that I found recently, because there's like this Slack channel, listen to my podcast episode, but acceleration. Yeah. We should be exporting this model of success to the rest of the world. What model? We look forward to sharing this agenda with you and to restoring America's energy leadership. All right, so let's look at the first one. I want to say again, if this is regardless of party, honestly. If any party was putting this out, I would be saying this reaction, because I'm just talking about what the facts are. Okay, The Energy, Climate, and Conservation Task Force, unlocking American resources. Oh, we started with 2 quotes. We are going to get rid of fossil fuels, says Joe Biden. What a quote. I am wholeheartedly against fracking and drilling on public lands, said Deb Haaland. Okay.
Also,
under the Biden administration, we have seen record increases in energy prices coupled with inflation. Again, they're implying that it's because he's in charge. I guarantee pretty much any other president would be going through the same thing right now, considering the Russian war. In 2021, U.S. imports of Russian oil nearly tripled. Okay, I think there's actually, they cited things. Okay, EIA, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for now, okay?
Mm-hmm. La, la, la.
Despite these facts, President Biden and his administration have consistently opposed American energy development. Rather than restricting domestic energy and mineral production, we need to unlock American resources to provide energy security here at home and for our allies abroad. Again, when they're saying consistently opposes American energy development, they're being very specific, which is just saying no sometimes to new fracking projects. That's pretty much it. Top line facts. Gas prices have risen nearly every single month of Joe Biden's presidency, long before Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Okay, yes, it's true. Also, Biden can't control gas prices. The U.S. Energy Information Agency projects that crude oil prices will remain above 100 BBL in the second half of 2022. Also, not surprising, which is a reason why we should move towards electric vehicles faster. And electrification in general. This is why we need to get off of oil. Okay, cool. 24% of Americans reduced or went without basic expenses, i.e. food and medicine, so they could pay their energy bill in the last year. We should electrify things and maybe, use some government money to help. In 2020,
Sorry, the Alexa thing just randomly spoke. Okay.
43% of the European Union's natural gas and 29% of Europe's oil was supplied by Russia. True, they should also get off of that. When looking at just crude oil imports, in 2020, the U.S. imported an average of 76,000 barrels of crude oil per day from Russia. In 2021, the U.S. imported an average of 198,000 barrels of crude oil per day from Russia. That is a 160% increase in just 1 year of Biden's administration. I mean, yeah, honestly, we weren't moving very fast on moving away. So if that's a gotcha, it's true.
Yep. Yes, they did. I am not surprised. That was just a matter of time. They had been talking about that forever. And while people have been literally down the town nearby to protest the plan, the government wasn't going to listen to them. It was going to go through. And so, yeah, I saw that. I'm not surprised. I will say that, I don't know why they need to increase their steel production. I'm not sure what the necessity of that is, but I will say that steel is one of those hard to decarbonize sectors that will bring coal further into the future than probably any other type of technology. Those high heat needing products are going to be what keeps coal for longer, which is why we need to get rid of coal in every other capacity, because that will be the hardest one to get rid of. The Swedish green steel method really needs to be spread around soon. I completely agree. And I wish there would be more investment in that than just continuing business as usual. Yeah, infrastructure development. Yep. Yeah, so not surprised, but disappointed. I should make that a t-shirt. It's probably not very original, but, it's just true.
The U.S. has 473.3 trillion cubic feet of proved reserves of natural gas and 38 billion barrels of proved oil reserves. Oh boy, where are they going with that?
By the way, this whole thing of just listing bullet points with seemingly no context to each of the is kind of what all of these plans are going to look like. So just brace yourself for it. We're going to have to move through them a little faster than what I have been moving through this one, which is hard because it can be very, very enticing to try to fact check every single little thing. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, their plan is a lot of stating statistics and then just implying things through those statistics. Yeah.
Global demand for minerals is on the rise and production could increase by nearly.
I only have you for 22 more minutes. Okay, well, this thing is going a little faster than what it was before. So I feel like we kind of already get the idea of what is happening here. If you want to watch the rest of the video, I recommend watching it. Obviously, because it's my video. Hi. But it's basically more of them blaming Biden for things he actually doesn't have control over and accusing Democrats of doing things that in the first place. Yes. Okay. This is basically it. Let me just give you guys the little end piece here.
It's not going to be ugly. So they include with this 4 acts that they're going to try to push through. Okay. All right. So that was their... Oh. So this was just part 1. They're going to do American innovation next. So if you want a part 2 of this, let me know. But unfortunately, this is about what I expected. And I just wish that we would...
More like blaming Biden for things he never supported to begin with. Exactly. Be
talking about the solutions instead of posturing the same stuff over and over again. Like, we're just repackaging the same stuff, the same way we've been going for the last 60 years. And you can't put climate in your task force if you are still thinking that the way things are now is the way that we can keep going. So it's unfortunate. Again, not surprising, but it's unfortunate.
I have a bit more analysis and thought I want to say since the reaction, and I'm going to be a bit blunt. This is not a climate plan, or an environmental one, or a conservation one. This is a dig, dam, and drill plan, at least based on part 1. Republican politicians haven't budged on their thinking practically at all, yet they're slowly drawing out this optical illusion during midterms to reassure their base that they have a plan to tackle this issue. While support is dropping, unfortunately, due to growing misinformation on forums and places like Fox News, that will be part 3 in my US solar struggles series, actually. Over 73%.
Rebecca, stop promising things that you don't follow through with. Stop. I need to have an intervention for myself. Yeah, POTUS is definitely target. Like, that's what you basically sign up for, honestly. Yeah, I do still want to do a video on solar permitting and all that kind of stuff. I need to. I just it could be like pulling teeth sometimes when you're talking about super technical shit like solar permitting, but it's super important at the same time, and more stuff has happened since then that I need to cover it. But also, yeah, we already did talk about misinformation, and I'm super sad that my video quality was so shit for last Friday's episode, or else I definitely would have put it on my YouTube channel. So I guess I gotta do my own video with the misinformation, but yeah.
Of people who politically identify as Republican favor solar, and 62% still favor wind. So far, this plan doesn't reflect that, and the same Republicans who are on this task force have continuously blocked efforts by Democrats to pass rules that would spur clean energy adoption and manufacturing. It's really weird that the plan advocates for more mining for critical minerals, but it doesn't say anything about actually supporting the deployment of more clean energy. I'm not saying Democrats are perfect either. After all, we have Joe Manchin, who's making the Democrat majority a joke, and many Democrats aren't thinking as ambitiously about the climate.
She's not a Democrat anymore. Now she's an independent as of today. So that's a thing. Did you guys hear about that? That's a thing. I don't know what that means. Like, honestly, she's already practically voted like an independent anyways. So like, I guess that reduces Democrats' majority in the Senate, but we already had a narrow majority. I don't know. Like, maybe that makes us more susceptible to Manchin's opinions again. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Climate crisis as they should be. But if this is what the Republicans are leading with, expanding methane gas and reducing environmental inspections, climate-conscious voters remain stuck with one option.
But yeah, let me know if you would like me to look at any proposals.
Becky, stop promising things. Don't promise anything. Never promise things, because you don't follow through with them sometimes, most of the time, and then you feel sad that you don't do that. So stop promising things. Yeah. Anyways, okay, let's actually go to the plan. So now all of them have been released. It was not on my radar at all. There. It was not on my radar at all when the other ones passed, because they got no press comparatively to the first one, which is not that surprising, but you know. An analysis I read was that this was a move by Sinema to avoid a primary challenge from Democrats. Yeah. The other guy starts with a G. I can't remember. I have a friend who is a usual, you have that one friend who will update you on things having to do with politics that you weren't even aware that you're supposed to look at. He's one of those, and so he was like telling me about how he thinks that Democrat would wipe the floor with Sinema. I have no idea, because sometimes he's a little too optimistic, but it's interesting. The Senate has 2 independents anyways. They just caucus with Dems. Now there's 3. Okay. So it really doesn't make that much of a difference then, bottom line. Cool. That's fine. Just continue to be insignificant. That works best for me. There's going to be several things in this stream I'm probably going to have to cut out for the Becksphere channel, because I try not to be quite as obviously politicized in the Becksphere channel. I try not to be too politicized here either, but, this shit brings it out of me. The third caucus with GOP, though. I wouldn't be surprised if she caucuses mostly with the GOP, but we'll see. Okay, so now we're on to the second one, which is American Innovation. Let's see if it sounds all that different from... Why is it giving me this view? Oh my. I don't want it to be printed out. I just wanted to look at it. Can I look at it without it being printed out? Can I expand? Can I make that go away? Oh, I made it go away. Okay, good. But now I would like to increase the size. Woo! Good. Much better. Okay. Whew. Hey, what's up, amazing KB? How's it going? Oh, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate you. So we are checking out the part 2 out of 6 parts of the Republican House Committee on Climate, Energy, and Conservation, or the task force, sorry. So this is American Innovation, which that's gotta be the name, right? Yeah, okay. American Innovation is the name, and it starts with a quote, which is from a scientist. Just scientist. We don't know what type of scientist he is. He is just a scientist. Yay. Good to know there's a scientist. Okay. By the way, so I'm 15, so I can't vote, but I am a Republican and lean right. Climate change exists, but isn't an issue, and is partially but not fully man-made. Okay, so that's a lot of misinformation that you gotta dissect, okay? Hi, thank you, I love Gawk 443 for following me. Hello, welcome. So amazing KB, you got some misinformation you got to work through, okay? Which is why, hey, we're here. That's great, but just I recommend just listening. Focus on listening, because climate change is vast majority man-made, and it is one of the biggest issues that face humanity today. So slightly off, but that's okay. That's why you're here. All right, so innovation is enhancing American competitiveness and security by using new technologies to make our energy cheaper, cleaner, and more reliable. America is among the most efficient producers in the world because of a free market economic system that rewards efficiency, incentivizing the American entrepreneurial spirit that has delivered some of the most innovative technologies in the world. So that's not untrue. When you look at like different technologies like fracking or like solar panels or different types of nuclear technology, the U.S. government has been some of the main people that... I am pro climate change in the sense that I throw car batteries in the ocean. What? Are you guys just going to be trolls? I'm sensing some trolls in the chat. Yes, I know Alex Epstein, not a fan. A good study would be to see what climate change related money in the congressional reps actually try to get after legislation passes versus what they vote for in Congress. That's a very good test. That's true. Yeah. I don't know how to find that out, but that would be very interesting to know. Because right now, most I can find out is which representatives received the most fossil fuel money, which is different, but also important. Yeah. And he does base pro-fossil anti-environmentalist work. Yeah, so that's not based if he does that work. That just isn't based. Because that's just ignoring reality. So that's, yeah. I'm just curious, how long have you created an account October 27th? Okay, well, you're not terribly old, but how do I get out of this? Go away. Shoot, now I made it so I can't look at the chat. Okay, hold on. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I know. I'm looking at him. Carlos. Mod needed here. Just saying. Okay. Yeah, again, I recommend you listening instead of just talking, because you, I'm afraid, are quite misinformed. Carlos is no longer in the chat, but Jay Sarch is, who's also a mod. So very nice. Okay. So, yeah, so it's not incorrect to say that we have produced a lot of technologies in this country, but the free market system being the one producing those technologies is a different thing. Whether or not it was the free market making those technologies more well known in the public's eye, that's a different thing. But a lot of these original technologies were made with government money in a government lab. So, well, if you want an example for an environmentalist who's okay, I'd recommend no. Okay, so you just, and that gave you a timeout because you know that is actually just a climate disinformation guy. Okay, take some time off. Again, maybe just consider listening, because I've actually read Bjorn's bullshit, and I can tell you straight out that he is just full of misinformation, and he actually gets money from fossil fuel companies. All the people that you like get money from fossil fuel companies. So you are just in the pocket of fossil fuel companies. Have some original thought. Okay. Now we go back. So, incentivizing American entrepreneurial spirit has delivered some of the most innovative technologies in the world. Innovation should not mean higher prices or fewer energy choices. Republican policies are designed to help advance affordable innovation technology solutions across all sectors that not only help to reduce energy costs and global emissions, but also enhance American economic and energy security by prioritizing and utilizing American resources. If you are utilizing American resources, then you should be in support of solar and wind, because those are American resources. Oh, I didn't even see. What did that guy say? In contrast, Democrat policies often increase. Oh, I guess I could. Oh, but the chat's so tiny, I can't see. Whatever. But also, let's see. Republican policies are designed to help advance affordable, innovative technology solutions across all sectors. Yeah, all right. Just announcing his return. Oh. He said boom roasted, but I timed him out for a previous comment about throwing car batteries into the ocean. Yes, that's good. We don't like that here. Okay, yeah. If you guys are still listening, again, I'm not against you being here, but you have to understand that the misinformation that you're spewing right now it makes you look really dumb, because it just shows that you haven't done your own research. You're just relying on other people to have thoughts for you, which, by the way, their thoughts are also not original, because they're getting money from fossil fuel companies whose scientists have known since the 80s that climate change is a huge problem caused by their product that is going to continue getting messed up. Okay, fair. You haven't posted it. Sorry, the other guys posted it. I'll give that one to you. But throwing car batteries into the ocean also makes me concerned for you. So, like, but I also understand that was probably just you trolling, so I'll give you that. Anyways. Okay. Republican policies are designed to help advance affordable, innovative technology. I've read that sentence 3 times. Let's move on, Becky. In contrast, Democrat policies often increase energy costs and decrease American economic and energy security, while also increasing reliance on adversarial nations like China and Russia, contributing to less American jobs and higher global emissions. Okay, so I don't know what you're referring to with increased energy costs, unless you're referring to something like increasing gas prices in California by trying to make it more expensive for fossil fuel companies because they have to use more biofuel production or something like that. I can understand that being an argument. And decrease American economic and energy security. I don't know what you're referring to, considering both parties have done a really bad job of improving our infrastructure, except Democrats passed the infrastructure bill, which was technically bipartisan. And there's also more infrastructure stuff in the Inflation Reduction Act. So that seems to help with energy security. Again, I don't know whether or not this thing was written before or after the Inflation Reduction Act. I would imagine it's written before the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's, again, something to just keep in mind. Sounds like a fossil fuel funded scientist. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, honestly, this could be any scientist because, like, it doesn't mean much. Like, that could be an economic scientist. I don't know. There's many things that can be considered scientists. Just like you can be considered a doctor because you have a doctorate. Hey, what's up, Hannah? It's been a while. How's it going? Aww. Very nice, very nice. Glad to know that you guys find this topic interesting. But yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say it was Democrat policies to increase energy prices and decrease American economic and energy security. I think that both parties have done a pretty bad job at improving energy security because, again, our infrastructure sucks, but there have been new policies that have been led by Democrats to improve that, so that's good. But also, again, if we're talking about the increased reliance on Russia, which could be due to less domestic production, which isn't even necessarily due to one party, but rather just due to fossil fuel companies wanting to reduce the supply so that they can increase the product price. Yeah, that could possibly increase our reliance on Russia, but that's more having to do with more of these fossil fuel companies finding it financially interesting to export the product instead of keeping it domestic. So, and then reliance on China, we already talked about that in the previous video, but basically they're talking mostly about critical mineral mining and different solar projects and how a lot of those are reliant on China. But that's a problem globally. That's not just a problem in the US. So that's another example where you cannot blame your own one party for doing that. If anything, I think we should probably blame Reagan for that because he was the one that was trying to globalize us and therefore shipping jobs overseas. So, yeah. The topic is the Republican House Climate Committee's climate plans, because now they're going to be in charge of the House, narrowly, but they will. So we're talking about what their plans would look like how much they prioritize different forms of energy production, so on and so forth. I miss you too, by the way. I know I need to visit. What these article authors don't ever take into consideration is that for the next 10 years, at least, we need to transform society away from fossil fuels, and that's going to take a lot of moolah, greenbacks, Benjamins, hard currency, Bitcoin. Not that, you didn't say that. It's true, exactly. And that's the thing, too, is that we constantly see this argument over and over and over again of, oh, we can't move that fast, it's going to hurt our economy. And it's like, guys, we have been saying that same thing for 30 years. More than that. When was the 80s? The 80s, 40 years ago? We've been saying that shit for 40 years. And that has successfully gotten us to not prioritize this issue. And now it's going to potentially actually hurt our economy a little bit to move away because we have to do it so drastically. But again, new studies are coming out every day to show that actually our economy would be hurt way more by inaction. So the choice is pretty obvious, honestly. Yes, Bitcoin. The difference, now I'm going to get a bunch of Bitcoin people in the chat being, anyways, the difference now is actually that it's actually happening. Exactly. There are going to be growing pains. Anyone who says that it's going to be a smooth transition is lying to you. But also, if you hear someone who is against the transition in general saying that the other side believes that it will be a smooth transition, that's a straw man argument because no one says that. So, yeah. And actually that Maple Leaf Dragon, that will be something that I'm going to address a little bit. I don't know if is it this? Yeah, so I did look at these things a little bit earlier because again, I was going to make a whole video on the aftermath of the midterms, but I decided to do it this way. But in a next one, I'm going to skip to it a little bit just because I know that you're not going to be around for too much longer in this chat. But to go with your thoughts with that, this graph right here, this is what the IEA says the projections would look like if climate change was not a factor. I think it's very telling that they're using this graph as a reason for why we need to increase pipeline infrastructure into the future, because they're looking at this graph and going, oh, see, these are the reasons why we need to increase our production because look how much is going to be needed in the future. But that can only exist if we completely ignore climate change, making it so business as usual is not a possible future. And this scenario right here that they put out will probably lead to at least 3 degrees Celsius of warming. And this is what they are looking at when they're deciding what the energy system should look like in the future. That's concerning to me. The difference now is it's actually happening. I already read that, sorry. Yeah, so that kind of goes with what you were talking about though, right? Is that they're acting like it's not going to be a rough transition. They're also acting like we can continue business as usual and that we can just ignore the climate aspect of it, even though climate is within their own task force title. It's just kind of shocking. Petroleum will crater and renewable will skyrocket. Nuclear, not so much. It's back. Yes. Yeah, isn't that interesting also is that they're super pro-nuclear, but they're looking at this and thinking that that's fine. I'm kind of surprised by that. I'm surprised they didn't try to at least take like a plan that increased nuclear being the main portfolio piece. So that's also interesting. Yeah, but we'll go into that one in a sec. We gotta finish this one first. Which also talks about nuclear right here. That's the old nuclear. Okay. Yeah, you're probably right, honestly. Okay. Federally funded research and development plays an important role in kickstarting American innovation across all sectors. For example, cheaper, cleaner natural gas produced using hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, the primary driver of Americans' world leader. Okay, I have to. What did it say? Geez, sorry, I just saw Bjorn on Jordan Peterson. Okay, Jordan Peterson also is heavily funded by fossil fuels and therefore is also really not a good source for anything climate related. Just saying. He recently was on Lex Fridman, also not a good source. I'm sorry, you got to check your sources, dude, because I'm afraid that a lot of the people that you're getting information from are very disingenuous on where they are getting their information from. And he called himself an environmentalist, so I tried to appeal to you on that. I didn't know his funding. That's okay. That's fine. And that's why we're here. But yeah, he did a whole book called Cooling It, where he specifically talked about how the planet's not warming at all. And in fact, if you look at the polar bear populations, they're doing better, kind of thing. So he's very, very disingenuous. And unfortunately, Jordan Peterson, also super disingenuous when it comes to climate topics. Lex Friedman isn't even a political commentator. He didn't necessarily agree with Bjorn. That's good. Yeah, where have I heard Lex Friedman from? He's just kind of also in that sort of category of Jordan Peterson and stuff, so that's probably why I said that, to be fair. But yeah, Jordan Peterson has been more and more questionable with his sources when it comes to stuff. But yeah, a lot of these people in particular, like I see where you're kind of getting your information from, a lot of those people have a lot of ties with fossil fuel companies, and that's just really important to keep in mind. That was the book. Hannah, that was the book. That was Bjorn. Yeah. Do I have it? I think it's in storage. But that was the book. It was at a used bookstore, and I took it. I purposely bought it to keep climate misinformation away from people. Hey, sup, Zeoduck? How's it going? Thank you. I switched to PC and OBS, so the world is so much better now. I listen to y'all. Yeah. Yes. So, that's, yeah. Okay. I don't know where I was going with that, but cool. Yes, and we supported a local bookstore. Yeah, so I bought the book just so I would support the local bookstore and I would get that book out of circulation. I would have just hidden it so deep in the store that no one would ever find it again. But then you wouldn't be supporting the local bookstore and someone could find it. So I'd rather just have them pay for it. It's not like the money's going back to the original owner either. Yes, I am a PC gal, at least for Twitch. I still don't know the workings of the PC, so I still mostly rely on my Mac for other things, but yeah. Though it is so much faster. I got a good one though too. Like this one's good. It's got a good it's big as well. It's a big one. It's like that big, which is the biggest laptop I think I've ever had. Anyways, so, and this is all thanks to subs like Maple Leaf Dragon, who makes it possible for me to be able to get new equipment like this. So thank you very much. Okay, so where were we? Oh my goodness. Federally funded research and development plays an important role in kickstarting American innovation in all sectors. That's good to recognize because it's true. For example, cheaper, cleaner natural gas produced through using hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, a primary driver of America's world-leading reduction in emissions, began with research conducted at a Department of Energy national laboratory. Nuclear energy and solar technology are also a result of early-stage federal research. That's all true, by the way. That's all true. And I am not going to necessarily shit on okay, I actually am. I was originally going to say, I'm not going to initially shit on us originally moving towards gas and using hydraulic fracturing. But I changed my mind because if we actually properly did an environmental review of that technology, we would know how much methane leaks from those facilities and also the adverse impacts of people's local health and the local environment by doing that stuff. So we didn't do our research with that enough, I'm afraid. So it ended up not being a great technology. It made things faster for us, and it did initially reduce emissions because emissions from gas production is little less than oil and coal. But usually when people say that, they are ignoring the new research that has come out that shows how much methane leaks from those facilities because the gas is mainly methane, and methane is 84 times more potent at trapping in heat than carbon dioxide, which was something we did not initially understand when we were putting fracking into a more important space in our energy production. What are all y'all saying? I think new Mac stream, okay, to be fair, but you do tend to get more bang for your buck on PC. Yeah. Oh, the difference is night and day. It is such a big difference. Like you can see me moving around. And I know how to get the audio for a video to you guys instead of having to use my microphone. So they do not trust me. To be fair. Your worst nightmare or best fever dream, you decide. Oh no. Oh my goodness, y'all are silly. Okay. Back to it. Okay, so a lot of them ended up being from the DOE National Laboratory. Nuclear energy and solar technology are also the result of early stage federal research. By funding and incentivizing fundamental research, the federal government can play an important role in advancing innovative technologies without top-down mandates or distorting the market by picking winners or losers. So they're recognizing that the federal government can play a role. That's already farther than I hear a lot of them say. I'm not here to simp on fossil fuel companies, but it sounds like you're implying maliciousness and conspiracy. Okay. Maliciousness and conspiracy on them that I think isn't necessarily fair, even if you're right about climate change. They don't have the research on it to be fair, but I haven't done the research on it, but it's probably more like me where they ideologically disagree and not conspiracy. I wish that was true. But here's the thing, is that if you look at how much money each of these institutions that support fossil fuels have received from fossil fuel companies, it is astounding. Like they have provided a lot of money to those groups, and that has shown in studies to influence how they perceive research. For example, even if you look at Columbia University's energy center, they are partners with fossil fuel companies. And there was a recent research that came out that showed that comparing the research centers that have fossil fuel partnerships versus ones that don't, the ones that do, their research is more in favor of natural gas than the ones that don't show any partnership. So that's one of them. But also, there's a reason why this is going to sound super politicized, but there's a reason why the House Democrats put big oil on the stand to talk about misinformation, because they are still to this day utilizing AstroTurf groups and the ALEC, which is the American Legislative something, you have to look it up, ALEC, to move legislation in favor of fossil fuels. To this day, they're still doing that. So that's why I'm not saying that it's only Republicans that are getting money from fossil fuels. It's also Democrats, but it's mainly just Manchin out of the Democrats and Texas Democrats that are getting the most money. But what about the larger, wealthier, woker, liberal companies into the ESG stuff that's anti-fossil fuels? They have plenty of lobby money that outweighs. But no, here's the thing, is that the ESG push is because consumers have shown more interest in wanting to have a portfolio option that aligns with their values. And their values are not in support of fossil fuels because fossil fuels are the main drivers of climate change. For example, I'm one of them. I have not put any money into any of those funds because there is no regulation for ESG funds. You can still have an ESG fund that has zero transparency and that also has fossil fuel companies within their funding structure. So that's why it's important for the SEC to come in and provide regulations for that new, it's not new, but for ESGs, because there is currently no regulation for them. I am not in favor of big corporations, big liberal corporations. I'm progressive. I'm not liberal. So when we're talking about acting like I'm in favor of those companies, I'm not either. They need to be regulated. And so that's why the SEC regulation thing matters. But the thing also is that Republicans are also against the SEC regulation process as well. So they're trying to block companies like BlackRock from divesting from fossil fuels, even though that is just an example of the free market choosing to move away from a product that will be a stranded asset in the future because we're moving away from fossil fuels. Like, do you really want your money to be put into a company or an industry that is supposed to go away in 20 years? That doesn't make sense, right? So they're moving away for the straight purpose of free market values, right? And Republicans are trying to block them because they are simping so hard for fossil fuels that they think that it is against fossil fuels. But if the market just decides that something is a risky investment, then they're just not going to pick it for the sake of the free market. Also, big oil has so much money in those banks that they are absolutely making it as difficult as possible for them to switch anyways. Okay, let me read what Zeodek has been saying. Yeah, there's a lot of greenwashing that goes on in the fringes to say that something's good because it's tangibly better than the last thing, but it's still awful. It's like all the science in the 50s showed that smoking had no link to lung cancer, and the fact that those studies were bankrolled by the tobacco companies was just a minor detail, lol. Exactly, and those exact same people that were putting out those shit studies, the PR companies for the tobacco industry back in the 50s, are actually the same people that are running the show for fossil fuel companies. And tobacco got that information from fossil fuel companies because they've been doing it for such a long time. It does sound like a conspiracy, but I swear to God, if you believe in any conspiratorial thing, this one actually is fucking true, and it has so much data behind it, it's ridiculous. It's like there's no regulation of the term green. People use that term without any basis. Exactly. I mean, Eileen writes, so we're going to have much larger and more fundamental disagreements, but you know more about climate science probably, so I'll watch and give my 2 cents. That sounds good. I like that. Yeah, no, we can disagree on things, but I think also I think we agree on more things than we give it credit for. For example, we both think that politicians are corrupt. And we both think that giant corporations are corrupt. So those are 2 things that we can absolutely agree on. The question is how we fix those problems, right? And also who's more corrupt. You know, not necessarily between politicians and corporations, though also yes, but also which parties, that sort of thing we're probably going to disagree on. Being a fanboy for coal is still a vote winner to some of the bases, lol, depending on who your electorate is, right? Sorry. Being a fanboy for coal is still a vote winner to some bases. It depends who your electorate is, right? Yeah. Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin's a coal baron, and he gets the most money from fossil fuels out of any politician in Congress because he literally owns a coal facility. And coal only would survive to this day if due to government subsidies. If government subsidies went away, coal is the example of why the idea that the free market exists is bullshit, because it would not survive without government subsidies, and yet it's still around. I don't think anyone disagrees politicians are corrupt. I don't think so either, but I do think that and this could just be a straw man argument, you can let me know, but I do believe that some Republicans claim that Democrats simp for politicians and simp for huge government overhaul when that's not even true. So I just have to put that out there. Some politicians are, not all. Some corporations are corrupt, not all. At least the terms of politicians, I think, is mostly ideology and not campaign funding. I mean, I'm sure AOC gets plenty of funding, and it's not like she's pro-corporate. I just think her views are stupid, and that's where we will disagree for sure. The system is corrupt. They're just making the most of it. Exactly. I mean, this is corporate America, so. You hate AOC, J. Sarge? We'll talk later. Anyways. Why do you hate AOC? Okay, we're getting off track. Let's go back to this. We're not going to talk about AOC right now. Okay. You have bad feet. You funny. Okay, so yes, bottom line is a lot of this original technology came from government facilities, which is support for R&D government funding, not necessarily support for free market, but I mean, that's kind of funny. she's terrible and a huge hypocrite. Again, we're going to talk about that later, off stream, because I am very curious to see what you're referring to, Justin. By funding and incentivizing fundamental research, the federal government can play an important role in advancing innovation technology without top-down mandates or distorting the market by picking winners and losers. To allow next-generation American innovation to flourish, the federal government must avoid overly prescribing policies and incentives that can disadvantage new innovative technologies. I agree. So why are we trying to disadvantage clean energy? I'm curious. The current permitting regime also hinders innovation, as delays and uncertainties can discourage private sector investment in first-of-a-kind technologies and supporting infrastructure. Again, I do agree with that. I think the permitting issue is a really big one because it has definitely reduced the amount of clean energy projects that can actually enter the grid once completed. So that's a big problem. Hey, what's up, Levelhead? Thank you for the Rue emotes. Very nice, very nice. Thank you for resubscribing too. Yay! I appreciate you. Will do, Hannah, will do. We've been having a very interesting conversation. Did I see the Kentucky pipeline spill, or Kansas? Now you're just mixing up the K named states. I don't think I did. Did you put it in the Discord? Did I miss it? I know you put something in there a little while ago, but it was, yeah, no, that's different. That's your stuff. No, I didn't. I missed that one. Yes, please put it in the news section. Okay. Well, in general, a bigger incentive for politicians is voters, not funders. I don't even think that's true, though, to be perfectly honest. And many red states, senators, congresspeople, regardless of their funding, live in states with a lot of people who work in fossil fuels, so they're getting those workers' votes as well as not funding. They do get funding, and also when a whole area is mostly like, okay, take for example Amazon. Amazon continues to stifle workers from being able to unionize because they can easily institute their own versions of propaganda into worker information to make it so workers are more in favor of that company. Yes, there also has to do with the fact that many fossil fuel workers are multi-generational. Their grandfather worked there, their great-grandfather worked there, all that kind of stuff. However, lately, fossil fuel companies have been laying off a lot of their workforce because, again, they're not prioritizing increasing domestic supply. They're only focusing on keeping prices high so that they can make a lot of money. And that actually is pissing off a lot of fossil fuel workers. If you want to know more about that, I actually did a video on just how climate change and the economy go together. So I recommend you checking out that video because I think that it will provide some really useful information relating on that. By the way, if you don't know, I have a YouTube channel. You should check it out. I do a lot of climate news coverage. But this is the video that I'm referring to. So definitely a little thing there. What am I doing? Sorry, I'm still not used to the touch screen. Okay. It's recent. It's 14K battles estimated from Keystone. Oh, so black tar sands. Oh, barrels. Okay, that makes more sense. What's not true, Hannah? Oh, what Amazing KB said? Yes. Hannah's dad, get in on it. So yeah, I recommend that because I specifically in that talk about the different aspects of how fossil fuel companies to this day are blocking progress towards clean energy, so they're not a separate actor. And then also I talk about how workers are getting screwed over by their fossil fuel companies and how they are not really happy about that anymore. So, it is just, it's a lot of misinformation that is being spread around about fossil fuels and about clean energy. And a lot of people in general are in support of clean energy. It's just the reason why they're not moving fast enough towards clean energy is that they have been told to be scared of what the future could look like. And also, weren't a bunch of environmentalist freaks trying to, okay, first of all, we're not going to call them environmentalist freaks because that is mean language. Let's be a little nicer, okay? And second of all, there was glass in front of the Mona Lisa. They had experts that told them how to make sure that they were doing it in a way that wouldn't actually hurt the art piece, and that shows by how little jail time they got from this whole process. They're from Just Stop Oil, and their main goal is to just get the UK to stop investing in new fossil fuel projects, which is lined up with the International Energy Agency, who, by the way, was founded by a fossil fuel exec. But they have a whole decarbonization plan that shows that it does not make any sense to produce any new fossil fuel projects if we are to keep warming low enough for us to avoid catastrophic climate change. So that's all they're talking about. And they're people our age. So let's have a little more respect when you don't understand the whole situation, okay? See, this is where I'm afraid you've gone too far in the misinformation. Fossil fuels have contributed so much to people dying. Let's talk about air pollution. Let's talk about water pollution. Let's talk about chemical pollution. Let's talk about all these different things. Like, no. Go ahead and tell a coal worker who has black lung disease that, okay? Go ahead and tell someone with black lung disease or someone else whose child died prematurely due to water contamination by living near a fossil fuel facility that they are pro-life and pro-growth. Also, it's a finite resource, so we're going to run out of it too. Just something to keep in mind. Yes, I saw that. We're going to cover that on Tuesday, I promise. You're good. All right, let's get back into it. Okay. Okay, so bottom line is they support research, I guess, government research, but they don't want it to go so far that it hinders the free market. Okay. From 2005 to 2020, the United States led the world in reducing emissions. That is not really true considering they continue to increase emissions during that time, but they're referring to how natural gas reduced the amount of emissions compared to coal, which is true, but it's not, it wasn't purposeful. So these reductions were largely due to innovation in the oil and gas sector. This will result in innovation in the free market built from discoveries in fundamental science, not increased taxes, federal mandates, and burdensome regulations. I mean, there was subsidies involved, but okay. The U.S. Has the most dynamic private sector in the world with entrepreneurs, large and small businesses. Okay. American business is the driver of investment and research, but you just said that all this came from the Department of Energy National Laboratory. What do you mean? Okay, accounting for 70% of U.S. R&D. Let's say that's true. I will say that coming from a background having to work with the Department of Defense, they have specifically said that while the DoD used to be a huge place for research and development, now it is a lot of the private sector. So I wouldn't be surprised by that statistic. But many critical investments in innovative energy technology like nuclear power and fracking are also the direct result of government-funded basic research commercialized by industry. True. But here's the thing, is that just because something is true now doesn't mean it has to be true in the future. Amazing KB. You understand that. Like that's the main problem with your argument here, is that just because something is true now doesn't mean that it has to be true in the future. That's like saying, "Oh, well, you can't talk about the possibilities of the future when you live in society." It's like that's super stifling to any form of innovation, any form of moving progressively into the future. If people thought like that for, I don't know, take like the internet, if people were like, "Oh, well, mail is how things have been, therefore, why would we change anything?" Then maybe we wouldn't have moved on to the internet. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not that's a very stifling way of thinking. And also, we are seeing a drastic change. For example, if we actually promoted electrification, then we would not need to build as much clean energy or move as drastically. Well, we would need to move drastically, but we wouldn't need to be quite as stressed out as we are about completely replacing our energy if we prioritized also just increasing insulation in our houses and improving our infrastructure to make things more energy efficient. People don't pay enough attention to that, but that would make things so much easier. Just because something exists as it is now does not mean that that's how it should exist in the future, and that also doesn't mean that that's what we just have to settle with. So whenever a wind turbine built outside of the fact that it takes more energy resources to produce, that's more misinformation. Whenever the wind stops or sun, that's why we need battery storage, which is currently being worked on and was more money went to in the Inflation Reduction Act. So I don't watch TYT either. Like, come on, dude. You know there's other options out there. Like me, hi, welcome. But if you are equating everything that if you are only listening to one source and then saying any other source is just woke environmental nonsense, that means you have closed your mind to thinking critically, which is not a good look, my dude. Wind turbines don't take more energy to produce. That's just misinformation. And also then they run on their own. And the only reason why the wind might not have done as well on the winter section of Texas that one time was because they didn't put in the proper technology to defrost it, because wind also exists in like Arctic regions. So it was just their lack of forethought that is the reason why maybe that didn't work. But also the main reason for blackouts in both Texas and California is due to fossil fuels, not clean energy. So yeah, he might actually just be a snowflake. Like, think critically. Think critically. If you want to claim that you can think critically, then don't just claim anyone else that says something slightly different than what you have heard over and over and over again by going to the exact same sources over and over and over again as just woke nonsense. You are not critically thinking, and you're just exposing yourself as not being a good critical thinker, which is okay. You're young. That's fine. But, like, do better. And again, instead of arguing with me, maybe listen to me. Because you said you were going to, and now you're just making arguments the whole time. So you're doing a good job getting the whole channel riled up, I mean, to be fair. To produce energy infrastructure, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's called innovation in the form of long-term battery storage, which we did a whole section on different types of battery technology on this Twitch stream a few weeks ago. If it's not there anymore, there's a second channel called Beccasphere Streams on YouTube where you can watch it there. I will say that the watch quality is pretty shit, but the audio quality is pretty good. So. Also, there's channels like Just Have a Think and Engineering with Rosie that both talk about innovations in battery technology. So. You can't think critically. Oh no, Mono. Limo just read through the chat stream. I know it's been a thing. If you're progressive, TYT might have hiring positions. So you're not listening to me anymore, is what I'm hearing. Do we need to time you out again? Because I think you've lost your ability to think critically. I just said I don't even watch TYT. So no sun, no energy, man. Funny that fossil fuel advocates always have the exact same arguments when they say the same thing as Lone Barber. You should question where you're getting your information. True. And that man's from Colorado. He knows. The US is literally designed around cars. Most public transit sucks, and that's not always an option. And that is another fun conspiracy that is actually true, which is that car manufacturers purposely made it so that public transit could not compete. So they kind of shut down public transit being a thing in the US. That's more corporations doing things. If you want to get pissed off at corporations, because they're the reason why things are the way they are now and why it's so difficult for us to switch. Because it's not really a free market. It's just a bunch of oligarchs all working together. Lists, I think that an important missing link of the puzzle is energy storage. Yeah. And that's something we got to work on. You're funny, Mono. Okay, boy, we're not getting anywhere in this. I might have to do it myself separately in a video, which is fine. But, you know, it's good practice to know whether or not this is actually capable of being its own video. I need to be funny because I'm not smart. Same, my dude, same. Oh, man. Okay, so, yeah, where were we? Right. Innovation happens. Innovation happens in both the private and public sector. Cool. DoD Office of Science is the national largest supporter of basic research on physical sciences. It's just like, we're just listing facts. What is your plan? I need to know the plan. That's the whole reason why I'm here, is the plan. Here's the thing, though. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that are pro-nuclear and skeptical of wind and solar, but here's the thing, though, is that if we're working to diversify our energy sources, which we need to do in order to maintain energy security, we cannot solely rely on nuclear. And so these people that are saying, oh, well, we can't rely on it, they're not. Having a zero carbon baseload generation is certainly an important consideration. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised that there's other people that are skeptical of wind and solar. I'm just saying that is due to them not understanding that we have had literally how many years with fossil fuels to allow them to innovate and get better, which they haven't. And then comparatively, we've had how much time to actually bring up the clean energy sector. The clean energy sector has only been taken seriously for like the last 15 years at most. That doesn't give enough time for us to actually fully try it out. So also, it takes 10 years to build at least an original nuclear facility. So if we're fully relying on nuclear, we're not going to be able to decarbonize in time. There is new nuclear facilities, but again, we shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket of one form of nuclear generation. So we have to look at all the other options that don't provide emissions like fossil fuels do. And it's an article for 2014. That is another big thing too. Opinions have changed on wind and solar, as now wind and solar are cheaper than gas. And that's only been true for the last, 3 years. So looking at an article for 2014 for a topic like clean energy transitions, it's not relevant anymore. I would be curious to know what those same authors think now compared to that. So we kind of sloshed on in the chat. That's so funny. Oh my goodness. So bottom line, I have no beef with you. I have no beef with you, Amazing KB, okay? We're just going through it, but there's a lot of things that are important to think about and look at when you're looking at different sources. And the date is definitely one of them, okay? That's very important. Good job finding a source that's not necessarily just right-wing, but now you also have to look at the date, okay? Okay, so we're getting back to the statistics. DOE Office of Science is the nation's largest supporter of basic research. A lot of Nobel Prizes, good for us. Okay. United States has led the world in basic energy science research, investing in, more than the rest of the world combined. I would be curious to know. That could be true. I don't know. There are certainly challenges with the move to sustainable power generation, but the challenge is inevitable, and those challenges must be overcome. Exactly. Just looking at the challenges and saying, oh man, I guess we can't do that anymore is not, one, it's not like possible, because we need to move away from fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are the main driver of climate change. And also we need to we need to just expand our ourselves into the future. Like, we need to look at new technologies. Is that a critique of the other paper that he found? What is that one? Okay, so now we're getting into a little more of the crux of what they are looking at as a solution. Zero emissions nuclear power is safe, reliable baseload energy source that provides nearly 19% of the electoral generation in the U.S. and accounts for 50% of all carbon-free electricity in the U.S. That's true, which is why I'm not against nuclear. American companies are also working on next-gen nuclear energy. True. The U.S. is the world leader in the development of carbon capture, utilization, and storage. I don't think we're the world leader in that. Just because we keep saying we're the world leader in something doesn't mean it's true. Hello, Arbelin. How's it going? But anyways, okay, so they like carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology, which I'm not surprised about. CCUS projects around the world safely sequesters. Okay, but you give no context to what the bigger picture is. Like, that's not that much, to be honest. It's not very much at all. The private sector is investing billions of dollars in carbon capture projects. DOE also invested more than $1 billion during the past 2 decades through this carbon capture or carbon storage research and development program to start the technologies and capabilities for widespread commercial deployment of the geologic storage. True. And actually, the Inflation Reduction Act also allocated more money towards that technology. So that's true. The thing is, though, with CCS is that that technology is encouraged by those that like fossil fuels, because it can suggest that fossil fuels can exist into the future for longer, which we should not be thinking about as a possibility. Now, I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but I am saying that it's a possibility. The U.S. is one of the most efficient producers of energy. That's not true. And innovations such as carbon capture can reduce its carbon footprint even further. That can be true. Oh my goodness, what are all the things that have been said? So much has been said, my goodness. The more obvious of Dr. Frank's data problems were assuming wind and solar half as productive and twice as costly as they actually are. Gas power twice as productive as it actually is, but with no methane leakage. Exactly, that's what I was saying earlier, is that they don't account for methane leakage, which is really important, and price volatility, let alone extractive side effects of fracking. Nuclear power at 1/2 of its actual cost and construction time and 1/5 of its actual operating cost, the supposed need for new generating capacity and for bulk electricity storage, no efficiency opportunities worth mentioning. Very interesting. Wow, using dates, liberal tactics. Again, this was back in 2014. They're just more efficient now. I thought I recognized the name. Oh, interesting. Okay. World leaders can be twisted in so many ways. Facts. Cope. I mean, first do X, then B spends more on X, can get voted best on X by orgs you fund. I need like the equations thing to go over me right now. What can be first to do X, can be spends more on X, can be, okay, I can't. I don't know what that means. Seoduck, you're great with the X's because that's part of your name, but I'm confused. My strategy as CEO of the Anti-Glacier Alliance would be to do carbon credits traded with other countries and then just trust they're actually following through. Perfect. Yep, and carbon capture for sure. That's their responsibility. That's beautiful. I'm not even against all renewables. My main issue is how do you plan to completely transition off fossil fuels given the fact that we don't have a reliable energy storage and all the initial energy and source mining that is needed to build renewables in the first place. And that is exactly why we're having this whole conversation, but also you have to trust that people are working on it. For example, the Inflation Reduction Act actually allocated a lot of money to fix those problems. And between that, the infrastructure bill, and the CHIPS Act, all three of them promote more domestic production, and also renewables already account for like 30% of our energy supply, which is a drastic change from only a few years ago. So technology is moving faster than you're giving it credit for. So that's something to keep in mind. The energy storage situation is something we need to work on, and that's actually something, if we look at the House Republican plan, is something they actually support. They also support long-term battery storage. However, the main thing is that they only support any form of technological development, and if every single thing of it is made in the United States, which is unrealistic for both our own production of fossil fuels even, and also for the production of solar panels and battery storage, which come from mainly China and other countries as well. And yet, world leaders have recognized that they want to move away from China being the main producer. We recognize that. It has been recognized globally that that is a problem, and it will take time to fix it. But that does not mean that we should not move at all on clean energy until that problem is fixed, because then we will miss our targets. And you're young, I'm young, I would like to have a decent future. So that's literally why I'm doing all this, okay? So in the UK, we've recently had a CO2 storage shortage. Lots of CO2 goes into the atmosphere and it's bad for the environment, but some goes into stuff we need, and CCS might make some processes that are currently unsustainable part of a sustainable system. True, could be. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. Come on, man, we're not even trying to mostly transition, let alone completely. People went to the moon and when no one had done that before, and that was just for Dick Sweeney, not even because we had to. Exactly. Ain't that the truth? That is so true. Thank you for that example. Let's not pretend we can pop up nuclear overnight either. True. You're not getting a decent future. Sorry, I'm melting them glaciers. Mono, stop. Drink your drinks in silence. No, I'm kidding. Keep talking. You're just funny. Look, I'm not against renewables, but let me just verbatim repeat fossil fuel industry talking points meant to slow progress to the point where the entire conversation becomes moot as we careen towards 2+ degree future. Exactly. That actually is a correct translation of what you're saying. Amazing. So, sorry. It is. We've heard your same arguments for decades. And it's one of the reasons why we are currently so far behind in the process compared to what we could be. Fake news, we went to the moon because the creepy NASA pervs wanted to fuck aliens. There's no one there that can say no to that argument. Plus, what about the profits people who are working at fossil fuel companies and the banks who invest in them? Oh, wow, it's a full circle moment. That's exactly why we need to regulate ESG, so that it's actually possible for people's money to go into funds that are not full of stranded assets like fossil fuels. That's the transition that the free market was trying to work on doing when Republicans blocked them in several states. So you see why that doesn't really make sense? Why would they be just pro-free market when they're trying to block the free market? That's what I'm curious about. Also, you claim I'm bought off. I'm not claiming you're bought off by fossil fuels, dude. I'm not. I'm claiming that the people that you are listening to are bought off by fossil fuels. I've never said you are. I'm saying the people you are verbatim stating the opinion of have been. And it's the same talking points over and over again. And they're still very popular talking points because there's still a lot of disinformation going around. That's just the case. I'm not an environmentalist, but fuck them. So they moved to other jobs. Yeah, they moved to other jobs. And they already are moving to other jobs, actually. Scotland's a good example of how offshore oil facilities are hiring, or offshore wind facilities are hiring people that used to work in offshore oil because, honestly, the technology is quite similar. And the cool thing is, if you move to clean energy, you also don't have to deal with the side effects of health implications, and it's a less dangerous industry to be in than fossil fuels. Talk about innovation. Mono going off. That's on the free market, not the authoritarian government to do so. Okay, but the government's not authoritarian, so let's stop with the just like drastic rhetoric. And the free market doesn't actually exist, so can you imagine if we still rode horses to get places just because someone might lose a job in the process? So true, so true. You shouldn't tag streamer in every message. That's annoying and unnecessary. Good recommendations. You choose to work in industries that destroy the planet and the free market at work, though, right? Yeah. Why did you get bailed out? You're not bought off. You're just internalizing the marketing propaganda directly targeted towards people like you with little understanding of the issue. Yeah. Earlier, you told me I was, and I quote, in the pocket of fossil. You are. Due to those opinions. That doesn't mean that you were bought off by them. That just means that you're in the pocket of them. That's still true. If the government wants to do the right thing, they offer alternative jobs from fossil fuel ones. Exactly, which is why there's money going into the Inflation Reduction Act that specifically allocates subsidies for companies that choose to build in traditional energy communities, which are those communities that were originally propped up by fossil fuel companies, and since then the fossil fuel companies have left them or are currently in process of leaving them. There's money specifically there so that companies prioritize those communities, which is why you're seeing a lot of different battery facilities and clean energy facilities being built in the Midwest. So let the free market move to the cheaper option without hindrance. This is the free market in effect. Shithouse govs won't do anything obvious, do what the obvious solutions are. True. Yes, no government subsidies for green or regulations to push that. Now there are, but not as much as there still should be. So also, though, then there shouldn't be any subsidies for fossil fuels, which would decimate the fossil fuel industry, particularly the coal industry, because it solely relies on subsidies, which is, again, why I state the free market doesn't fucking exist. It never has. Yes, that is who we're talking to right now. A 15-year-old libertarian who watches Jordan Peterson. You don't sound 15, either that, or maybe you just absorbed a lot of old people words. That's pretty funny. The government is already subsidizing fossil fuels more than green. Yeah, it still is. Yeah. Yeah, fossil fuels is subsidized to hell, dude, so the free market doesn't even fucking exist. Yeah, and they won't even stick to the clean water promises. And fossil fuel companies constantly try to pretend like they're going to create funds to clean up spaces after they're done using them, and then instead they choose to purposely go bankrupt and make it so taxpayers have to clean up their messes for them. That's happened for years too. You could just ask Levelhead. He's very, very informed on that. I hate clean water. Good. It's being used for fracking. If she said fossil fuel industry is your daddy. Yeah, I think that'd be more accurate. I mean, other environmentalists who are alright is Michael Shelberg. Let me guess, he's bought off by the industry too. I don't even know who that is. Who is that? Hey, what's up, River Kai? How's it going? We're arguing with a 15-year-old libertarian here. How's it going? I'm looking up who this is. I don't even know who that is. Michael Schellenberger. Oh, thank you. Okay. I'll go back here. Oh my goodness. No, I didn't ask to do that. What happened? Stop. Go back. Okay. I'm not used to having the clicker. Ha! Okay. Michael D. Schellenberger, born 1971, is an American author and former public relations professional. Oh, so not a scientist, okay. Whose writings have focused on the intersection of politics, the environment, climate change, and nuclear power, as well as more recently how he believes progressiveness is linked to homelessness, drug addiction, and mental illness. Okay. Wikipedia. I already gave you guys some money. You don't need more money, Wikipedia. You're fine. Yes, I did actually give Wikipedia some money. They do good work. Okay. So let's get this. Let's start. He does not have any. Does he have, let's see, economic? What do you go to school for? What's your education? It's Coloradan. That's on you, Levelhead. Peace and Global Studies. Interesting. And they study anthropology. Okay, so he does not have any background in economics or environmental science. Okay. That's okay. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something just important to note. Yeah, I should get the trackpad for PC. I should just get a mouse, honestly. A self-described eco-modernist, Schellenberger believes that economic growth can continue. Okay, so he believes in decoupling. You know what? That is... Okay, I'm okay with you liking him because he subscribes to your ideology, but he actually... Also, stop tagging me, dude. You don't need to tag me. I'm going to see your shit anyways. Stop tagging me. Levelhead is culpable for all the outcomes. Absolutely, 100%. Lauren Boebert entirely. You know they're dating. No. I don't believe he's taken oil funding, though, but I don't know his funding. I mean, honestly, he seems fine. I think it's hopium, too. But that's, again, that goes into my own opinion. It is a legit belief by a lot of people that capitalism can exist in a way that still contains environmental growth without having environmental catastrophe. That's a concept called decoupling that's very popular in, for example, you might like the, yeah, actually, you should look at, Mr. Amazing. You should look at the, shoot, what is it? The League of Conservation Voters. They're a group of conservative environmentalists that do support climate action, are definitely pro-nuclear. They talk about it honestly too much, in my opinion. And because that's another straw man argument that people don't like nuclear as much. Nuclear has become way more popular of a concept than it used to be, so I understand why they used to need to like advocate for nuclear more, but now it's just kind of redundant. But I think you would like them. They kind of sound similar to what that scientist is that you like. And I don't necessarily think that they are a bad organization or anything like that. We definitely have disagreements on how the problem can be solved and the concept of decoupling versus degrowth, which decoupling, again, is the idea that capitalism can exist and we can continue to consume without environmental impacts. Degrowth is the idea that we need to move away from the concept of economic growth to begin with because the constant need for consumerism and developing more goods has resulted in environmental degradation, and there's no way for us to produce more goods continuously without hurting the environment. Now, one could argue for a closed loop system, which is that we know where everything is made, we know where everything comes from, and everything is just recycled back into the system. But that's also a really hard thing to engineer entirely to be completely self-sufficient. So, but if that's what you want to shoot for continued economic growth, but through a circulatory economic system. Okay, that is a reasonable argument, and congrats, you finally arrived at a decently reasonable argument. And it's not bad to be pro-nuclear. That's fine. We have a lot of pro-nuclear people in the chat here. So pro-nuclear does not equate to being bad or being anti-environmental or whatever. That's not a problem. You can still definitely have those beliefs, but you need to understand that fossil fuels need to not be continued into the future and that humans are the main driver of climate change. So, I mean, from what I've seen, he's pro-nuclear, but although he's not completely on board, he's for fossil fuels more than you. See, that's okay. If he's still pro fossil fuels and anti solar and wind, then he is not in line with what data has shown. So that's unfortunate. But I recommend that you instead look at the League of Conservation Voters because I think you would genuinely like them. They go on Fox News too. Quicker to build small modular reactors too, but are not scale up quickly. Also very energy intensive compared to the reuse, etc. Yes. Politics. Schellberg worked with left-wing groups in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 1990s, okay? But he has since renounced the Democrat Party. On Twitter, he frequently criticizes wokeness and critical race theory. Okay, but if he criticizes critical race theory, then he actually is full of shit. Because critical race theory is a college-level course that never was taught in school, and the idea of critical race theory is just used as a way for white America to not focus on the atrocities that America has caused to the minority groups. So the whole argument of critical race theory, and frankly wokeness, because the definition of wokeness is just being aware. So if you hate being aware, then I wouldn't want to follow that guy personally. I am pro bagel slicer. He's pro-abortion, universal health care. That's good. He's a real weird selection. Yeah, that's a really weird combination. I think he likes to take the wokeness and the critical race theory just as like kind of just arguments to make him look cool. Like those are just the non-arguments that Republicans like to use to distract from real problems. So, what is Marxism? I know dropping that would bait something somehow. Nah, he strikes me as someone who's an actual independent, and that's fine. I'm not against that. But again, I think that amazing, sorry, I forgot what the letters are after that, but I think that you would actually benefit from checking out the League of Conservation Voters. So definitely check them out. Wow, we've gone so off track. Views don't fit snugly into either party. That's perfectly fine. You know, honestly, the Democrat Party is a mix between multiple different ideologies that tries to pretend like they're all part of the same party. So, I mean, depending on what part of the party you're referring to, I don't necessarily fit snugly into one party or another either. 15% minimum wage, collaborative bargaining rights, and alternatives to incarceration for drug-related crimes. Those are all good things. But also a tool for conservative politicians to bring out against environmental stuff. True. Huh, interesting. Well, now he's on my radar. He sounds like a very interesting, maybe slightly conflicted dude. But there you go. Ha! He wrote a book called San Francisco. Okay, but I do have a problem with this one. Because I think it's really disingenuous to, like, why are you hurting your own environmental party by claiming that they're just alarmist? Because it's not true. In fact, we're not focusing on it enough. So to call environmentalists alarmists means that you're kind of full of shit. Just saying. Like, I can understand us having a conversation about different activism strategies and stuff, but to just claim in whole that moving away from fossil fuels is alarmist is disingenuous. But then again, here we are looking at the House Republicans, and they, in COP27, said that people wanting to move away from fossil fuels is alarmist. So, okay. They said, oh, well, emissions and fossil fuels are not the same thing, which, to be fair, they're not exactly the same thing, but fossil fuels are the main driver of emissions, so, okay. You haven't lived enough of your life to say that, Amazing KB. You're too young. You're just way too young. Anyways, okay. When you try to actually like live your life and afford things, then you will respect the idea of universal healthcare when you're off your family's healthcare. Mono. Chill, my dude, chill. I didn't. I've been watching this from my ivory tower, or I mean, work. Lawbreaker so much. Libertarianism is the go-to for 15-year-olds and people who want to marry 15-year-olds. Accurate. So accurate. That hurt. Oh. Oh my gosh. Pissed as a fart at 8 p.m. is still snow. Y'all are scary. Unemployment is a gift, living my best life. You're here. Thank you for being here. I feel like this would be a very fun stream to drink to, honestly. Oh. I'm recovering it. Yeah, she's out there getting her master's. Well, she's just a badass, so you know. Not my fault. I was actually trying to do something and it got canceled without warning. Oh, you poor thing. I'm sorry. That sucks. Mono, behave yourself. You're making me look bad. Yeah, that's right, Carlos. He's on you. Actually, I think he's on both you and Levelhead. He's also in Levelhead chat too, right? I think it's all cross-pollination here. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. It's me. Hi. Mono's the problem. It's him. Okay, anyways. He's your mod. Hey, if I need another mod, Mono, you gotta be sober for it, but it's on him. He gave me the sword. Lol, try streaming degen hours sometimes. It's basically 14-year-olds nonstop. I believe it. I believe it. We're sending our best. Okay, that's legit. Just fortuitous timing. Again, happy to have you here for that time. Okay, so let's get back to this, which is a bunch of statistics. Bunch of randomly placed statistics that show that facts don't care about your feelings. However, your feelings definitely determine which facts you present. Okay, so okay. So again, actually we were not even on this one. We were on this one. Yay. Okay, good. Okay, so innovators in the US are currently developing and deploying new technologies to provide affordable, reliable energy while contributing to further global emissions reductions. Zero emission nuclear power is safe, reliable baseload energy source that provides nearly, okay, I already read that, but yeah, all right, good. Okay, we've moved on. Got it. They like CCS and they like nuclear. Got it. Innovation, not elimination. It's funny that they mentioned how solar was also an investment made by the Department of Energy earlier on, and they just won't mention solar again in this conversation. Like, I have read it before. They won't mention it again. So it's like, that's a little weird. Or if they mention it, it's very brief. So then they talk about examples of commercial or near commercial innovation technology for emissions reduction. Okay. But they talk about Allen cycle zero emissions natural gas power plants and other cost-effective carbon capture systems. Anyone want to look up the Net Power's Allen system that burns natural gas with pure oxygen? Yeah, somebody look that up for me. Give me a link here. I'm very curious what that is. I mean, I guess actually I probably have a link, don't I? Is there a link around here? They do provide links, which I appreciate. But I don't know. 22? That link doesn't look like it fully worked. Last time I checked, they didn't get carbon capture working well anywhere. Yeah, no, they haven't too much. Okay, so I'm guessing this is the technology, but it doesn't say anything about the name Allen. So this looks different. I don't know what that is. It'll work if you copy and paste the whole thing. It just got broken with a comma. Okay, let me... I don't know if I can, though. It's not letting me copy something. But it's fine. Wikipedia page, I could probably look that up. Yeah, that is weird. Okay, let me look it up. Alum. Oh, what did you send? Oh, Net Power LLC. Okay. The alum cycle or alum cycle is a process for converting carbonaceous fuels into thermal energy while capturing the generated carbon dioxide and water. This zero emission cycle was validated at a 50 megawatt hour, I'm guessing that T is not supposed to be there, natural gas fed test facility in La Porte, Texas in May 2018. This industrial plant is owned and operated by Net Power LLC, a privately held technology licensing company. Okay, so that was back in 2018 though. Is there any new information on it? Okay, here's some new info. I mean, if you're a climate writer and you're big on environmentalism, there's bigger, more liberal style magazines like Vox and Huffington Post who might have someone with your skills, but I don't know what your plans or accreditations are. I have a background in environmental science and journalism, and I have tried to, in the past, get one of those kind of jobs, but because climate change has only been recently prioritized in different any environmental any publications in general, it's very competitive. So I just graduated from college in like 2019. So instead I'm trying this. And also I'm just passionate about what I'm currently doing. So this is currently my plan to make this be a full-time job because I feel like it's needed in these platforms. Also, Vox and Huffington Post as your examples of liberal magazines. I mean, I guess I never read Huffington Post. Vox is okay, but interesting choices considering like you could also choose other news organizations like Reuters, AP News, Guardian. Even the Wall Street Journal has a climate section, so those were also options too. Let's see here. There has been more said. What has been said? The plant puts the carbon dioxide released from burning natural gas under high pressure and heat, using the resulting supercritical CO2 that the working fluid that drives a specially built turbine. Much of the carbon dioxide can be continuously recycled, the rest can be captured cheaply. A key part for pushing down the cost depends on selling that carbon dioxide. Today, the main use is in helping to extract oil from petroleum wells. Yeah, I'm not surprised. That also, unfortunately, is going to be subsidized by the Inflation Reduction Act as well because it just takes CO2 from the atmosphere, regardless of what it's then used for. Today, the main use, yeah, I already said that, that's a limited market and not particularly a green one. True. Eventually, however, Nextpower hopes to see growing demand for carbon dioxide in cement manufacturing and in making plastics and other carbon-based materials. True. Thank you, Hannah. Net power technology won't solve all the problems with natural gas, particularly on the extraction side, but as long as we're using natural gas, we might as well use it as cleanly as possible. Of all the clean energy technologies in development, net power is one of the furthest along to promise more of a marginal advance in cutting carbon emissions. That's the key term right here, marginal advance. Like, okay, fine, we can implement those technologies, but unless you are going to make it so that no new natural gas facility can be constructed unless it includes this technology, then you're just using this as an excuse for let's just keep producing new projects in hopes that we can attach one of these systems someday, which is a very sketchy way to try to reduce emissions. Definitely more of an insecure route than wind and solar. That's for damn sure. Jacobin, yeah. What's the point in that when working in these places would immediately get you ignored by centralists or right-wingers anyways? I mean, so it's interesting. When I was first figuring out like what I wanted to do in the way of like where I would want to go, I was initially concerned about applying for magazines and stuff that are specifically climate focused, because I was worried I was just going to be talking to an echo chamber. I don't really worry about that as much anymore. I would be fine working with either a climate specific or non-specific organization. But regardless, I mean, I've been told through what I'm doing now that I'm just talking to an echo chamber. So I don't know. I don't really know what the best method is. Love that, love that. You're tagging me again. Amazing, stop. Yeah, I'm not mean, but I mean for environmentalists, those are generally nonpartisan right-leaning outlets who wouldn't hire someone as passionate about environmentalism as you. That's not true. That's not true at all. Actually, again, if you look on my channel, please, I recommend subscribing to my channel. Check out my climate news. Almost all of them come from AP, from Reuters, from Bloomberg, from The Guardian. I even, in my last segment, had a Fox News article in there. So it's a lot more well-rounded of a conversation than you think it is. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I know the UK is still opening coal mines. I saw that too. Marginal advances, the low cost of massive land degradation and a massive radioactive waste stream that the industry will inevitably dump in local communities. Yes. Yes. See, also though, if you want to understand how bad gas truly is for the environment, check out Levelhead and his channel, and also like his news coverage, because it's really bad for the environment. And to claim that gas is so much better than all the other fossil fuel options is disingenuous. Not to mention the earthquakes. Yes. But what's a little earthquake when you can have marginal advance? Levelhead's got sassy on that one. Coking coal. They didn't yet make coal free steel making at the scale, as far as I heard. Yeah, there's some really good technologies coming out of it yet, but it hasn't been prioritized enough to be adopted in more locations, or it still is not quite scalable yet. I haven't looked too much into green steel. I need to. But yeah, it is for coking coal, which frankly, coking coal, I would say, is the most legitimate form of coal, lasting a little longer than any other use for coal, because I recognize the need for high temperatures. That being said, don't support a new plant. I don't know why they needed that. Mono, shut up. Shut up, Mono. You're not helping. I'm going to time you out just for that. Nothing happened. Mono's just being a butt face. You can't see the vision. Are you just using reverse psychology? Carlos is embarrassed. It's tempting to say no more of the bad thing, but until there's a replacement, it's the lesser of two evils. Yeah. But also, I would think it'd be more expensive to integrate carbon capturing technology onto gas facilities rather than just building solar and wind, which is cheaper and can pay itself off within a year if you live in like parts of Europe. It's reverse psychology. Then that's not helping. Sorry, this is a Wendy. No, this is Patrick. If you say that coal can't be mined locally, it just means that you have to transport it thousands of miles. True. That's true. That's fair. It's not Wendy's, you're lying to me. I checked and the Amazing KB is already banned on my channel. Interesting. But maybe I'll consider unbanning it if they can manage to stop tagging streamers in every message. Okay, well, so far they have not seemed to be capable of that, considering they just did it again. Why would you fill my mind with these lies? I'm hungry now. I mean, I'm pro-growth in general, so I'm fine with this so long as they aren't too tough on fossil fuel regulations either. Do you understand, though, the basis of why we need to move away from fossil fuels? Because I feel like you're just not getting that. Yeah, also growth for who? The gigantic corporations that don't need more money? Okay, for sure. Are you seeing the benefits of this growth? Yeah, no. Literally tag streamer the moment you say that. I know. There we go. Okay, I'll only get it. You don't need to, though. For one thing, my stream is small enough that I will see your thing regardless. And secondly, like, it just annoys them. So if anything, we're just going to ignore you when you do that, okay? Officially, if you tag me in it, I am not going to look at your post. Okay, I only do it to get your attention. I understand it being a tick for you. That's kind of an aside, but the UK economy has allegedly been growing for the last decade, and everything I've been seeing is getting worse. Yeah, that's the thing. Did you even click the headline? On that one, no. But do you understand? Because, okay, here's the thing. Okay, I'll click on the headline. So you don't support it when they do that for clean energy, but because they've been doing that for fossil fuels for decades, you're fine with that? I mean, you're going to be one of those people that say that we shouldn't have any benefits for minority communities because that's like so in the past. So oh, no, that's a really good reason to ban, actually. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, actually, that's exactly what I just said he was going to say. Holy shit. You didn't have to self-report. Yeah, talk about not having any research. Jesus. I know. I'm sure there's a lot of guessing on what his nationality is for real. It's bannable. It's so bannable. Are you kidding me? Yeah, yeah, basically. You are 15. I believe you're 15 because you're actually a child. Wow. And quoting MLK is so disrespectful, man. That's so disrespectful. Educate yourself, seriously. And yeah, good. I'm glad they're fast tracking permitting granting for renewable energy projects because we should be in the US too. Apparently it was Jordan Peterson. Just to show that I agree with the previous statement, I'm going to at least time you out. You're getting timed out. I don't know if this kid's redeemable. We'll see. I know. They always do that too. It's so stupid. MLK is rolling in his grave right now. Jesus. Okay, so while we take a break from that, let's go back to this, even though it's we're already quite over the time I would normally stream for, but this has been fun. I've been enjoying it, and I like to believe that one of the reasons why this is such a popular stream is because my camera looks better. I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to pretend like it is. It couldn't be because I'm cool. There's no reason that there's no way that's the reason. Zayo, stop. You're terrible. You're actually terrible. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we know that they like nuclear and they like carbon capture and storage, and we are incredibly unsurprised, right? And now we understand kind of what the, where is it? Am I even looking at the right thing? Yeah, I am. Where did oh, there it is, the alum cycle. Okay, so we got the alum cycle. Next one is negative carbon emissions hydrogen for power plants and transport. Okay. Okay, so they're also in support of not necessarily green hydrogen, which is produced using wind and solar, but negative carbon emission hydrogen, which to their mind means as a byproduct of gas that then is connected to CO2 or to carbon capture, which is interesting. Wabash Valley Resources from Indiana plans to use solid waste byproducts to produce clean, sustainable hydrogen for transporting fuel and baseload electricity generation while capturing CO2 emissions for permanent underground sequestration. Once completed, the project is expected to be one of the largest carbon capture and clean hydrogen production projects in the United States. The focus is to produce zero carbon intensity hydrogen with potential to develop negative carbon intensity hydrogen in the future. I'm not against that. No, I am. I mean, I'd be more in favor if you said that you were connecting it to a nuclear plant, honestly. But by that same classification, growing and burning trees is carbon negative. Yeah. Yeah, which is actually when we get to conservation with a purpose, then we're going to see that they are very much in support of saying fuck it to conservation of trees, and instead planting new trees is all you need. But your underlying point, yeah, they'll use this logic to describe it as natural. Yeah. If they shed leaves, they don't burn, and then if they shed leaves that they don't burn, then that carbon has been captured and added to the soil. Hey, how's it going? No worries. It's been a bit of a roller coaster on this stream. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's an example of where there is potential bipartisan support. They also support long-term battery storage. So that's cool. And they also support domestic critical mineral extraction. But again, what I said in the last video, which is that they seem to be very content with just destroying the local environment for resources, also applies to their interpretation of how we should handle domestic critical minerals, because they think that we should significantly reduce our environmental regulations to increase mineral mining. And then they get pissed off when people reject mines that are located in indigenous land where indigenous people gave no permission to have them there. Things like that, you know? So it's like, okay, I think we all support increased critical mineral mining, and we also support long-term battery storage. So those are things we could get behind. The question is, how are we going through with that? Did I detect a new UK coal mine? Yep. You would be right. It's a coking coal for a steel facility. If you look at how they mine these minerals in China, it's really hard to call it environmental good. We need some higher standards in extraction. Absolutely. Which is why I think it's a really cool idea that I brought up in the last climate recap video, but I've also brought up in the past because the UK has, or the EU has talked about it a little bit, is having sort of a passport or a certificate scheme so that we know where every single item is made and how it has been produced. Just an increased level of transparency will do a lot of good in this industry. We can have higher standards in extraction because we can't, capitalism. Yeah, well, that's where the government should come in and say, I don't care, you gotta do it anyway. It's funny how we're fine potentially using carbon capture and storage, which also would increase the price of goods. significantly to reduce emissions, but we're not okay doing that when it comes to like increasing the standards for other things like critical mineral mining. It's weird. Small scale nuclear reactors, so they do support that. Okay. Innovations is national security. I agree. And then they talk about the Chinese Communist Party. And the reliance on China. And Republicans are leading the way in nuclear energy future. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say that's not true. I think that they definitely have prioritized nuclear way more than Democrats, because for the longest time, Democrats were definitely not on board with nuclear at all. But now it seems to be pretty bipartisan, honestly. And then here's examples of Republican solutions, I guess. Wow, we finally got through that document. Holy shit. Whew. That was a lot. Should we keep going? Let's see how fast we can go through some things. Okay, policies. So now we're on Let America Build. They're only on board because the same gigacorps who will be doing nuke plants are also the ones doing fossil fuel plants. Is that true? I wouldn't be surprised, because I've always been kind of curious about why there is that connection there, but I don't know that. So if you can give me an example, that'd be great, because I really haven't looked into it. I have been wanting to do, here's me saying, I want to do this video, I want to do that video, and then I don't do the video. But I really do want to do a video just looking at fossil fuel alternatives, or fossil fuel companies' plans for alternative clean energy, such as biofuels, hydrogen, nuclear, carbon capture and storage, which is not energy production, but it, and also offshore wind is another one that they're heavily investing in, because I want to see why those are the ones they're choosing. It's more obvious for things like biofuels and hydrogen, because those can be byproducts or help fossil fuels stay longer into the future. Same thing with carbon capture. But nuclear is a little off center, and so I am surprised about that. I'm surprised that I'm not. But I don't know really the basis behind why Republicans love nuclear so much. Oh, it was an EDF. Oh, yeah, EDF. That's true. Huh. Both create steam and then electricity production in identical both ways. Interesting. Okay, that would make sense, honestly, because it's the same thing with offshore wind. Offshore wind's not that different from offshore oil development, which is why I can see that they're moving in that direction. Hey, look, right, there it is. Boom, offshore wind. How much of EDF's portfolio is fossil fuels? Because I always thought of them more as a nuclear company myself, but I don't know if that's just me not knowing as much. It's usually that. How much of their portfolio is fossil fuels? Yeah, because they only talk about wind, nuclear, and solar here. 20% of it is like fossil fuels. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, okay, interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so I would like to see some US equivalents to that as well, because I don't necessarily recognize a lot of nuclear facilities being owned by, like, I don't know, Chevron or whatever. Chevron US? I think so. You know what I mean? Yeah, just the source stuff. Of course, thank you very much for adding to the conversation with that. So the next one is Let America Rebuild. Policies that make American resources less competitive in the global market through punitive taxes, ill-advised regulations, or the government or the federal government picking winners and losers will result in higher global emissions and a greater economic burden on American families. I entirely agree, because our whole case study of seeing us pick fossil fuels for decades has definitely increased our emissions and been an economic burden on families. EDF is going into the latest nuclear... and he's back. EDF is going into the latest nuclear plant replacing China. It's going into the latest nuclear plant replacing China? I don't understand what you mean. I support EU granting permits to build renewables, and I said that, and fossil fuels because I believe diverse energy supply. Okay. I don't know why politically disagreeing is so timeout worthy when I oppose racism in all forms. Because here's the thing. There's one thing to have an opinion that's different, but there's another thing to be so uninformed that you are attempting to erase the history of America and systemic racism in other areas too. That's just being uninformed. And when you are that level of uninformed and you keep spewing the same facts over and over again, or not facts, because there were no facts in that. If you keep spewing the same talking point over and over again, while ignoring that people have said time and time again that you are misinformed and you are not improving or doing the research at all, then that is not having a separate opinion. That is just purposely spelling misinformation, which is what you're doing. So that's why that is completely and utterly bannable and timeoutable. Because you are not doing your job to actually educate yourself. There is so much evidence, there's so much data out there to show that systemic racism exists. So just because it's not an opinion at that point, that is just spreading misinformation, which is why it's burdensome. And it's hurtful to those who have lived that existence. You are basically ignoring the history of generations of minority groups, and that is racist. Yeah. America is systemically racist because they called me British. Mono, not helpful right now. It's literally been proven at an empirical level. It's the same thing about climate change. Exactly. It's the same thing as if you were to be like, oh, climate change doesn't exist. That's also timeout or bannable, because that is not, there's been so much evidence that that's not an opinion at this point. That's just you continuing to spread misinformation. Yeah, we're still, to this day, just in the midterm election, removing slavery from state laws and like legislation. Are you kidding me? But yeah, systemic racism doesn't exist. EDF and new UK nuclear plant, not China. Yeah, I know it's UK. Oh, yeah, you're correcting them. Yeah, it's UK. Yes, that's another thing too, is they are super anti-China in this whole thing. It's really interesting. Something always war with East Asia. If systemic racism was just means, do we have racism and do we have systems, then it's an open and shut case. If it means something else, then I think it's up for discussion. Huh? I didn't ban you for the disagreement. I banned you because you have one-sided conversations and ignore whatever point you don't feel like addressing. True. It doesn't promote it doesn't promote productive discussion. Okay, I don't know about the EDF thing. I have no idea. And you disrupt the entire chat. Yeah, you get us all riled up. The gov is all, we hate China, we hate China. Yeah, no, this is a lot of we hate China in this stuff. Okay. I'm back after minor breakdown, so how are we going to save the world now? Oh, they're pulling out all the agreements with Huawei. Oh, interesting. Okay. Systemic racism is about systems producing desperate outcomes. Just because those things pass doesn't mean systemic racism doesn't exist. Systems don't need to be explicitly racist to produce racially disparate outcomes. You have you have a misunderstanding what systemic racism is. It doesn't have to be explicitly racist. It's implicit. Exactly. It's weird how we can actually, no, that's not true because people don't believe that the wage gap exists. So never mind. I was going to say we understand that for women's history, but we don't even understand that for women's history either. Yeah, for reals, I had to vote on slavery this year in Oregon, but also just because the law is passed doesn't mean that generations of mindset is suddenly erased. Exactly. I said I didn't believe U.S. was systemically racist, and you insta-banned me without an opportunity to talk about it. Lol, maybe that's true. Yeah, sometimes we have more patience than others for bullshit. I think that's legit. Also, fun fact, Twitch and also people's platforms on Twitch never said that it had to be free speech. That's their own platform. They can decide what they want to do with it. Okay, so I'll concede the U.S. is historically racist, is a system from slavery, Jim Crow, etc. Also housing. I never said otherwise. That's a straw man. You literally said systemic racism doesn't exist, and now you're defining systemic racism. What are you talking about, my dude? No. We just have the same systems that produce bias outcomes. Are murder laws systemically racist because black people commit disproportional murders and are across? Oh, yeah. You don't understand the history of why black people are incarcerated at a disproportional rate, and assuming that it's because they are committing the disproportionate murders while not accounting for why they are in worse housing situations, why they are in situations that lead them to be incarcerated at higher rates. When you're ignoring the history of all of that, that is you ignoring systemic racism. Why are we talking about racism here? It's not relevant to climate issues. I mean, it kind of is, but also, yeah, we need to move on. That's not what systemic racism means. Now you're being blatantly racist. How do you explain harsher sentencing for exact same crimes for black versus white? Exactly. To be fair, I thought this was a climate change stream. Yeah, I need to move on. He just said systemic racism was about disparate outcomes. I gave an example of a disparate outcome. Yeah, but that's you believing that black people are just more violent, which is racist. Okay. I'm not even reading it anymore. Yeah, order. I agree. You're right. Okay, let's move on. If we keep going with this conversation, then you're going to be timed out again. Okay, guys, let's go back to the conversation at hand here. Actually, you know what? Because we are running out of time, because I knew this would happen. I don't know why. Let's pick. Okay, do we want to talk about Let America Build, Beat China and Russia, Conservation with a Purpose, or Build Resilient Communities? Which one do we want to pick? My cat has found a bird somewhere. I hear him doing the little noise. You've been stun locked a lot less than Carlos does. Beat China and Russia? Okay. Okay, quote from Joe Biden. Instead of relying on foreign supply chains, let's make it in America. That's a great quote from Biden. Oh no, he's been banned. Yeah, that was just too much. Okay? And that's the thing also, is that when we get into these random conversations, amazing, if you can hear me, maybe someday in the future I will unban you, but derailing the conversation to that extent by showing your hand about not believing in systemic racism and then have people going off on you on that and probably not learning anything from that, that you're going to keep getting banned until you realize that you're not being persecuted or anything for no reason. It's just because your statements are really uninformed and people have constantly been trying to tell you that and you are not listening to them. So do your homework, and maybe in like a few weeks or so, I will consider unbanning you, okay? Because you're still young. You're just really uninformed. I know, I have hope for people sometimes. Like, we made progress on his climate points, okay? We started with him being like, no, fossil fuels aren't causing it, blah, 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 to, okay, wind and solar might have something to do with it, to, oh, Bjorn's not a good reference, So, people learn things, and that's okay. I know it's hopium, shush. Okay, anyways, energy security and national security go hand in hand. The Biden administration's attack on American energy, which began on his first day in office, has increased our reliance. Well, I guess if you talk about the executive order that says we shouldn't drill on land anymore, maybe, but that's only an attack on the fossil fuels. That's not an attack on all the energy types. You're just being biased towards fossil fuels through this statement. I know. If they keep being ignored, then they keep going into the same holes that they're going to be in, and then we just have this 30-something-year-old libertarian living at his mom's, and I just want better for him. Lol, spend more time on Twitch, you'll lose that hope, JK, but kind of for real. I mean, that's why you banned him so fast, and I understand why you would, if I didn't have patience for that shit, he would have been banned instead of timed out 10 million times. Yeah, you need a high level of hopium, but you also need to be very, very numb when the hopium gets squashed over and over again. Same thing with climate stuff. Okay, so U.S. policies on energy and climate have encouraged domestic energy production and utilization of American resources. Will increase U.S. competitiveness, strengthen our economy, create jobs, decrease energy dependence on adversarial regimes, and provide security to our allies while also helping to reduce global emissions. I agree, which is why one of the best ways that we can utilize our resources, which is solar and wind, is to focus on the resources that are infinite instead of finite resources. If fracking is bad, how bad is open cast leach mining going to be for all those areas, though? Hopefully they come up with a better way. It's one of those things where it's like, the first way that we go through this process is not going to be the best way that we do things straight out. But that's why while we simultaneously need to increase mining, we also need to be increasing our recycling system so that is just a very short-term thing we're doing, right? Because it is bad for the environment too. But also, solar panels can last 25 years. So once you get that in there, then you're good to go for longer. Whereas oil extraction and stuff needs to continuously happen. But that's basically the thing that they're going to talk about, which is what I knew they were going to talk about, is they're going to talk about mineral mining and how bad it is and how reliant we are on China. And so therefore we shouldn't do anything. The U.S. is at least 50% import reliant on 48 different non-fuel mineral commodities, including graphite and cobalt, with 24 of them coming from China and 6 from Russia. Really, 6 from Russia. Interesting. When it comes to mining and the extraction of energy products, but also it comes from Congo too. Why isn't that mentioned? And Indonesia. They're chucking out so many lithium batteries in toys and vape pens dude, right? It's being treated like a material that's not valuable, and that needs to change. I entirely agree. And then also you can reuse car battery lithium batteries into more long-term duration storage. And we need to build grid scale batteries too. If only for reduction in mining, but as well as not polluting as much. Yes. And there are better ways to reduce the environmental impact of mining. I think that's just an area in which we need to just inspire more innovation, because I really do believe that we can do better processes than we currently do. But we just haven't prioritized it. Also, solar and wind are not the only uses for these minerals too, and that's important to know. Global demand for minerals is on the rise, with the production needs increasing by nearly 500% in graphite, lithium, and cobalt by 2050 to meet demand for clean energy technologies and consumer electronics. That's important to also recognize. Whew. In response, China has expanded its lithium mine production capability and has the largest share of global lithium refinery production. Great. They also really don't care about their environment very much. Around 70% of the world's production of cobalt takes place in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There it is. Where China companies have invested heavily and where there's been numerous reports of corruption and child labor. Also true. Russia is the next largest producer of cobalt. Okay. About 70% of cobalt refining takes place in China. Okay. The International Energy Agency, administration? You mean agency. I think they just mixed up the Energy Information Administration and the International Energy Agency, which, to be fair, I'm dyslexic, I get there too, but it's actually the International Energy Agency because it's an international agency, not an administration in the United States. China seems to care about the environment only as far as the consumers insist, and they are very happy to look the other way on pollution and worker ethics. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the International Energy Agency expects global cobalt demand to almost double from 2020 to 2030. I'm not surprised. About 80% of solar panels are made in China, whose Zhejiang region solar energy. Okay, I already talked about all of this in my last climate recap. Check it out if you haven't, but we talked about different parts of the supply chain that were problematic, and that's where then the idea of a scheme, a certificate scheme came up, and that's why this kind of thing matters. If only if the legislative process is corrupt too. What? This is why the profit mode is fundamentally at odds with solving climate issues. Profit seeks to incentivize inefficiency and de-incentivize things like recycling old lithium-based products. True. That's the thing. Also, yeah, making new products is just cheaper. And until there is some mechanism in which we can make it so that's not the case, then we're going to keep running into the same problem over and over again. Which then comes to beg the question, is it possible to regulate the industry enough that we are prioritizing recycling over new product, just like prioritizing clean or prioritizing healthy food over junk food? I don't know if that's necessarily possible, but I would like to think it is because, frankly, while I would love to switch what system we're in, that is much more of a pipe dream than trying to work within our system, sadly. And you can disagree with me on that. Who's following me? Wait. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Pandora Mask, for giving me a follow. I greatly appreciate it. I don't think cobalt and lithium are used in solar cells, and it is all in batteries. Yeah, which batteries are used for more than just solar and wind. It's also used for anything else electronic-wise, so. Were you not following me before? Mono, were you spamming my chat without following me? Thank you for following me. About freaking time. I thought you followed me before. Do you just do an unfollow and refollow thing just to be silly? I can see you doing that. Yeah, you were, you butt face. Butt face. Okay. So once extraction is more expensive, representing the true environmental impact, exactly. If you integrate the true environmental impact into things, then the free market can potentially move in a better direction, but you have to actually prioritize putting a carbon price on items and also putting a environmental cost on items as well. If we move in that direction, then maybe something would happen. But that requires regulation, which is something that people that are staunchly anti any form of regulation don't understand. Do you do that often, Carlos? Or not Carlos. Do you do that often too, Carlos? Because that is just rude. If you integrate the true environmental impact into things, you're going to get mass riots. Maybe. Maybe if we get better at hydrogen and other energy storage transport, we won't need as much lithium cobalt for chemical batteries in the first place. Yeah, I don't know about hydrogen being the main one, but yeah, there are a lot of other better technologies that don't require as much lithium and cobalt, which, again, we did talk about some different options in the, was it 2 streams ago now? Or was it last stream? I guess it was last stream. Last stream, we did talk about that. So definitely check back there if you want to learn about different battery types. But we basically just watched a bunch of Just Have a Think and Engineering with Rosie videos. So if you like that kind of stuff, you should definitely follow them. Solar cells are mostly mono crystal silicon with gallium doping. Doping? Is that the technical term for it? Doping? I'm not saying that because I'm against it. I love riots. I think you're just an anarchist. Yeah, basically every stream. You're a nuisance. Oh my gosh. Okay, if you do that on each stream, I'm timing you out for it. If I remember. We'll see if I remember. It will be a battle for Mono's obnoxiousness versus my memory of his obnoxiousness. Hydrogen is not very dense, but it's compatible with internal combustion and a lot of other reasons that work in a transition stage. Gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen accepted, lol. Yeah, no, I'm not against hydrogen. My main concern is leaks. Because even though hydrogen is not a greenhouse gas itself, it actually combines with a different chemical that would normally take methane out of the atmosphere, and it leaks way easier than almost any other form of gas that we've been dealing with because it's such tiny molecules. So it needs to be done near a facility in which it's utilized. I'm proud of you, Mono. I'm proud. So I'm not against hydrogen, but it needs to be done in only certain instances. It's not an end all fix all kind of thing, right? Okay, so yeah, bottom line, okay, Russia, China, we're just going to ignore the Congo one because we're not threatened by them. We're threatened by Russia and China. So Russia and China. In 2020, Russia was the third largest producer of petroleum and other liquids after the US and Saudi Arabia. In addition, Russia was the second largest producer of dry natural gas after the US. Okay, yeah, we're big suppliers still, which is why our energy prices can be so high because fossil fuel companies find it more profitable to send stuff overseas instead. Yeah, Russia's is higher than the US. That's true. But the US is still higher than like Saudi Arabia, so okay. Where do we go now? For what? And that, well, that's not under the Paris Agreement. That's just what their plan is. That's not under the Paris Agreement, though. It's time to return to horsepower. I think we should have a horse, take your horse to school day, don't you? Where are they calculating the cost of Russian gas extraction? That's a good question. Let's see. For the life cycle emissions, that's 16. U.S. Energy Agency, looks like. I don't necessarily think it's not true. I'm just indifferent. Because there's no climate conversation involved in this whole discussion. We're talking about beat China and Russia. This is still the Energy, Climate, and Conservation Task Force in the House Republicans. They should get a job sweeping the street and clearing the drains of horse doo-doo then. Who, Mono? I think so. Whose name's error on Google? It's hard to imagine how to use more energy to move a short distance, but maybe they just use worse transport or something. No, I think it's because their energy might be more, or it might be more intense. Oh, yeah. I think that's just a computer thing that I still gotta work out. This is the new computer, and I haven't really fussed with all the things yet. I don't think I am showing any private details, so I think I'm okay. I appreciate the concern, though. Yeah, but I think it's just how energy dense their processes are for producing fossil fuels. I see. Yeah, no, I'm not dealing with that right now. Okay. And then they continued the usual blaming Biden sort of thing. Which, like, okay. It kind of looks like US if you look at this graph here. Now, where was Trump? Oh, Trump was Oh, he was here. Huh. Interesting. And then got a little drop here. That was probably the pandemic. And then, yeah, Biden has been increasing it. I'm not surprised by that. Still seems less energy intensive than fossil fuel production, but that's just me. Okay. Let me check something real quick. Okay. But then you can use their poop for fuel. At least they don't produce methane like cows do. So what I'm getting from this is that they're saying that Biden increased the import for Russia, and that was mainly due to the death of the Nord Stream, or the death of the. Oh no, okay, that was the sanctions on the Nord Stream 2, so they wanted to put sanctions on it. I don't even know. I'm curious if you look back in the opinions of Republicans if they actually would have supported waiving sanctions for the Nord Stream 2. I don't know if that's true or not. Now Biden's asking Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and Iran to help supply American energy needs, which instead we should just be focusing on increasing our clean energy supply and not rely on those authoritarian things. I agree that that's not good that he's doing that. One more perk for horses. I don't think that they produce methane. Yeah, I think that they're not ruminatoid animal and yeah, ruminoid. Are they? Let me see. Rum. How do you say that? It's okay. Cows. What is the name for? It's like a ruminoid or something like that. Ruminoid. Cows. Ruminant. Ruminant. Yeah. Because ruminant is just describing their digestive processes, and so ruminant animals have they take methane or they like exert methane through farting and rumin. There we go. So that's cattle, sheep, and goats, and reindeer. But I don't know if it also is a horse too. They're saying that Biden is doing that like every established politician doesn't end up close with Saudis. Exactly. Exactly. The only reason the USA takes in foreign oil is because the US owns oil is not refinable in US refineries. They have to mix it. I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised. That's interesting though. Yeah, our energy or our oil is also pretty dense too. But yeah, they don't say horses in there. So there we go. Back for 10 minutes. Hey, what's up? You missed a whole conversation with a 15-year-old libertarian who completely derailed our conversation to start talking about systemic racism and how he doesn't believe it exists. And yeah, that went way too far off of our conversation, so we've been all over the place. It's weird. It's so weird how they make refineries for other people's oil. Globalization, I guess? I don't know. U.S. needs sweet and light crude oil to mix with their own. Mainland U.S. oil is a bygone era, though, so spouse is only natural. Spouse is only natural? Ah, yes, true. Yes, it's quite a conversation. You will enjoy it. But yeah, so these are the animals that fart and burp methane, just for reference. And obviously, I mean, there's technically more sheep and goats out there than there are cattle, but cattle are way more. There's way more on the planet than there should be. I would never. Me too. Just like the queen. Just never. Hope those cows left the table first. Degenerate behaviors. But I bet they do that for while they're mid-chew. Oh yeah, I bet. Y'all are so funny. The Biden administration is making the same mistake with renewable energy, pushing a rapid shift to solar panels, electric vehicles, and wind turbines without a comprehensive strategy to shore up U.S. supply chains for the minerals needed for these technologies. If we had prioritized this issue back in the 80s, then we could go about that, but we didn't. And so we don't got the time to wait. They're just using more reasons to delay the process. This is just more climate delaying, you know what I mean. I don't fart, I toot. Same. And silent. Takes years of practice. Despite growing reliance on China for critical minerals, the Biden administration canceled 2 federal leases to mine in Minnesota. I wonder why. Maybe there's actually a good reason why, potentially. That would provide nickel to manufacture over 200 million electric vehicles and enough cobalt to manufacture 42 million electric vehicles. So I'm actually curious, why did he ban it? Let's take a look-sees. The Biden administration has canceled 2 federal mineral leases held by Twin Metals Minnesota, dealing a potential fatal blow to the company's bid to build an underground mine for copper, nickel, and precious metals at the doorstep of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. Ah, there it is. That's why. Those leases located along Birch Lake and the Superior National Forest, about 7 miles east of Ely and just south of BWCA, are critical to Twin Metals' plans. They're required for the company to access the valuable minerals underground. The Department of the Interior took action after determining that the leases were improperly renewed by the Trump administration in 2019. So are you saying they were originally going to go ahead without proper environmental regulations, and so we stopped that because there wasn't any proper environmental regulations done? Crazy. The Department of the Interior takes seriously our obligations to steward public lands and waters on the behalf of all Americans. We must be consistent in how we apply lease terms to ensure that no lessees leases receive special treatments. That is a serious spelling error unless I just don't know that word. That means you accidentally put a S instead of an A and an E instead of an S. Anyways, after careful legal review, we found the leases were improperly renewed in violation of applicable statutes and regulations, and we are taking action to cancel them. No, it's correct? Oh, bye, Hannah. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Oh, I didn't know that word. Okay, well, new word. Ha! In a statement, Twin Metals called the announcement disappointing, but not surprising given the series of actions the administration has taken to try and shut the door for copper nickel mining in northeast Minnesota. So there you go. That's why it got canceled. It's weird that they don't mention that. Fascinating. Is it called a lessee? Or how do you pronounce that? Lessee? I learned a new word today. But anyways, that's why Biden canceled the lease, and originally Obama canceled the lease. So, yes on which? Lessee? A lessee is a person that buys a lease. Interesting. So yeah, so that's why that was canceled. There you go. Lessee. Okay, lessee. Cool. Thank you. Okay, so, oh, this is so funny. This is just a really funny statement. The U.S. has been the world's leader in lowering carbon emissions, while China has been the world's largest emitter, even producing more annual carbon dioxide emissions than most all OECD nations combined. Now, why is that funny, chat? Why is that a funny statement? Could it be because, one, we are not the world leader in lowering carbon emissions, or the fact that we're just going to ignore the fact that we're the historical largest emitter of carbon emissions, and we're only going to talk about how China is currently the largest emitter? Interesting. Very interesting. No biases in that fact, in that little fact statement there at all. Colossal manipulation of facts. Exactly. Let's see. And then focus on global emissions, affordability, and exportability. The U.S. has been a world leader in lowering carbon. Oh, okay, I already just read that. Even though China is the second largest economy, it's considered a developing country. Countries like China and Russia have pledged to continue to increase their emissions in the Paris Agreement. China's pledge is to grow emissions another 50% until 2030, when it hopes to cap growth. True. Because if you look at how swiftly they became the top, emitter, it's been only like the last 15 years. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they've had enough time to fully industrialize using that method, considering that we use fossil fuels for 2 centuries before we were considered developed, or I don't know when we were considered developed, but you know what I mean. Historic emissions arguably more important as we are watching the effects now. Exactly. It's important, or it's almost like they're manufacturing a bunch of stuff there for the U.S. specifically. Crazy that their emissions might actually be our Scope 3 emissions. Weird how that works, too. Good point. But let's blame those emissions solely on China and not on the U.S. True. There was another thing. I don't know if it's in this one. I feel like it is in this one, but they were blaming... Oh, I think it was in the conservation one, actually. They were blaming Asian countries for producing the most plastic pollution in waterways, which is incredibly ironic because a lot of that pollution, plastic pollution, is the U.S. offloading its plastic pollution onto Asian countries. So that's another example of how that's just disingenuous. Also, let's blame those emissions solely on China and not on the US. Exactly. Pre 1995, China was borderline third world. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so it's super fast, right? So it's not reasonable for us to be like, well, they're the top emitter, therefore, which, I mean, to be fair, I think I've said a little bit like, are they really a developing country? Because they are, but they're just emitting so much that, like, them being allowed to use the developing card when it comes to emissions reduction is interesting. So I'll give them that, but we all forget India is also committed to emit more too. Yes. Yes. Did not mention India right there? I thought it did. No, it just mentioned China, and because we don't have beef with India the same way. Yeah, and it's supposed to overtake China in population this year. To be fair to India, why the fuck not? Yeah. They do have a point. It's true. Also true, because once you're considered a developed country, I guess you can't go backwards. I don't know. Okay. Countries like China and Russia continue to increase emissions. Yeah, yeah, yeah. More than half of the global coal-fired electricity takes place in China, and the Chinese Communist Party has dedicated over $50 billion through the Belt and Road Initiative to develop coal projects across 150 countries in the last 7 years. Over 70% of coal-fired power plants being built today are dependent on financing from China. China is dominating the renewable market while growing emissions. This is true. That's true, and that's a good critique of China. Embracing cleaner U.S. technology, U.S. resources, and free market principles is what allowed the U.S. to reduce emissions while ensuring reliable and affordable energy. Considering we don't really have reliable or affordable energy, no. Other countries will not pursue a path that makes energy or goods more expensive. I'm confused. Okay. By developing and exporting innovative and affordable technology like carbon capture and sequestration technologies, which are not affordable. So, okay. And advanced nuclear energy. Okay. The US can ensure a successful model of reducing emissions with the rest of the world. Okay. Bye, Maple. Free market principles. Exactly. Democrat policies divert capital from American companies, advantage adversaries. Despite clear evidence that China is growing emissions while dominating global renewable energy markets, Democrats seem focused on furthering disadvantaging U.S. companies. What? For example, the U.S. Secretary and Exchange Commission has proposed new environmental, social, and governance rules requiring unnecessary, detailed, and extensive climate-related data that sent signals to the market, making it harder for innovators at American companies to access capital, which will ultimately raise costs on consumers. There it is. So we don't support any regulation of the free market, but also let's block the free market from doing things. That's funny. Yeah. Because giving the people what they want, which is an option to put their money in something that doesn't have fossil fuels, and also increasing transparency for consumers, those are two bad things. And it should be our fault for suggesting them because big corporations have to pay more money. Good. Okay. Just making sure. The typical ESG rule exceeds the regulator's statutory authority and misappropriate their rulemaking authority. The SEC has a long history of implementing disclosure-based regimes that facilitates, not participates, or dictates outcomes, the investment decision-making process. We're just telling companies not to greenwash themselves. I'm not quite sure how that's participating or dictating outcomes. Consumer makes record profits. Hey, we can't afford to follow regulations. Exactly. Consumer transparency is bad because it might make people less likely to buy. I mean, that could be true, but also that's kind of on them too. So then once they increase the transparency, then they actually need to like follow through with their promises. Shucks. I need number to go up. Punitive policies that restrain capital investment in domestic production of energy, which again only applies to fossil fuel energy, or other industries will only drive production overseas. Unless, of course, I don't know, ESG is also happening in Europe, but they're actually taking it more seriously. Could it be that if we looked outside of the US that we can find that the things that certain Democrats want to do actually take place in other parts of the world too? Oh man, that would be weird. Punitive policies that restrain capital investment in domestic production, energy, and other industries will only drive production overseas, often to places with little or no labor or environmental standards. That's always an argument for never progressing in your own country, because companies will go away and will just continue worse situations elsewhere. So we should let them walk over us? I don't understand that. This will result in an increase in global emissions and provide an advantage to the significantly higher polluting state-owned enterprises in adversarial nations. That's just fear-mongering. And then these are examples of solutions. Like this bill will protect retirement savings and investors from advisors and asset managers who prioritize social and environmental goals over returns. And you're proud of that. You want companies to prioritize their own returns over the well-being of people and the environment. Okay, that's just showing your card. Have you given your opinion on the latest climate conference saying they're going to drop warming at 1.5 degrees? The target was permitting polluters. They said the target was permitting polluters to pollute. Oh, are you saying that dropping it permits polluters to pollute? Is that what you're saying? I haven't covered it. I did recommend my YouTuber people to watch the one that Climate Adam did on that topic. Just Have a Think also talked about it. My main thing is that I don't think that it should be dropped, but I also do agree that at this point it's kind of a pipe dream. But that means that we should shoot for the lowest mark that we can hit. And if we overshoot it, that's better than overshooting a higher mark. So that's my take on it. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard because I think I don't think we should be living in a fantasy world where we think that we can easily still hit that 1.5 degree mark. But then again, we have never been on track to hit that 1.5 degree mark. So to claim now that it's pointless, we could have claimed that all the way back in 2015, and we would have been even closer to correct back in 2015. But that was back when we were expecting emissions to rise all the way to like 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, which because we prioritized trying to hit that 1.5 degree mark, it's now dropped down to below 3 degrees Celsius. So it doesn't really feel like we technically have done anything different. I think the only thing is just that we are realizing that we're not even close to hitting that target, and we are simultaneously realizing how important that target is to hit. Which is not good. Catastrophic climate change, frankly, happens after 2 degrees or at 2 degrees, so not good enough, but it just shows that maintaining that low target is good. They said that having the 1.5 degree target was being used as an excuse to pollute now until we get to 1.5. Who said that? I've not heard that. What's this one? This bill requires the Paris Agreement to be ratified by the Senate, restricts the president's authority to unilaterally establish or revise actions the U.S. plans to meet its obligations under the Paris Agreement, and increases congressional oversight over those actions. The bill also requires the president to provide an analysis of impacts on jobs, the electric grid resilience and reliability, and U.S. national security based on agreement. Finally, it prohibits any legal cause of action the U.S. courts persuade in the Paris Agreement. That one doesn't terribly sound terrible. I'm a little confused by what the catch is, because I feel like there's a catch. What, like, until we hit 1.5 degrees warming, so we'll be locked in much more past that? Yeah, I don't really understand. I haven't heard that exact phrasing of the 1.5 degree argument. I thought that people in the conference were saying 1.5 is pointless at this point because we're going to miss it, which is true, but we shouldn't be like only focusing on that, because they also talked about how every degree matters. So notice how every time they say the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, pro-nuclear, carbon capture, sequestration. Again, a lot of this stuff happened before the Inflation Reduction Act, which gave money to both of those things, so. Yeah, this thing would make me a little... Oh, you can't even see it, and I can't scroll down any further. Okay, well. Anyways, that was the last one we're going to look at for now. I'm going to go back to... me. Hi. How's it going? Yeah, focusing on the specific number is a waste of time, in my opinion. The point is we should do as much as humanly possible. Yes. I mean, it's good to have goals, right? So if we want to still keep our goal at 1.5, then we need to try to move as much as we can towards that goal. And if we miss it, then maybe we'll hit 1.7. But that's better than trying to reach towards 2 and missing it and hitting like 2.3. So that's what I think on it. I think it's now just every degree matters at this point. But anyways, that was the stream of the day. I need to eat food. I'm hungry. I smell the food my parents are eating below me. And yeah, but it was a very interesting conversation we all had, wasn't it? I probably won't use this as my main thing for the video. Maybe I'm just going to do a reaction the same as I had on the last video, but we'll see. Yes, exactly. All degrees matter. But no, because 2 matters way less than 1.5. Thank you, Becky. I will go back to your VOD and get the first 2 hours. Yes, please do. It was quite an adventure. But yes, I love talking with y'all, and we had a great conversation. And I'll see you again on Tuesday. Hopefully, I'll have a video out soon on my main channel. Yeah, I need to be a little faster on those. But anyways, until next time, remember to talk about the climate crisis every single day, and to support your local news organizations like the one that lovely Lucas from Levelhead is in. That was a lot of L's. What a chat, I tell you. Yeah, right? The chat, yeah, you might not see what the chat originally was because things have gotten banned, but you'll see on the screen here what it was. So, yes, a lot of outside pressure. Anyways, so thank you very much, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Let me go over to the... I created an end screen. You guys will be proud of me. Hold on. Hey. Now I need to actually get rid of my mic saying things. There we go.